Torah is just a long string of numbers. Some say that it's a code sent to us from God.
That's kind of interesting.
Yeah, that's just kid stuff. Check this out, okay? The word for the Garden of Eden, Kedem. Numerical translation, 144. Now the value of tree of knowledge, all right, in the garden, right? Eitz HaChaim, 233. 144, 233. And you can take those numbers. So
you know, like the Fibonacci sequence?
Fibonacci.
Fibonacci is an Italian mathematician in the 13th century. If you divide 144 into 233, the result approaches theta.
Theta?
Theta. The Greek symbol for golden ratio, golden spiral.
Wow. I never saw that before. That's like that series you find in nature? Like the face of a sunflower?
Wherever the spirals.
You see this math everywhere.
Welcome back to the Gnostic Informant, and you are about to attain true gnosis. Today, I got a present for all of you. We're going to do a little, I was going to say 101, but this is like a 401 level education right here. We're going to go deep into some primary sources. This is sort of some meta level comparative mythology that even someone like James Frazier would be proud of, I think. You know, I was thinking, I have a funny story to tell. The last time I ever did a video with Bart Ehrman, he was doing a course, and all I knew, I got asked to do a course. He's like, hey, you want to do a 15-minute video for free? Because Bart Ehrman charges thousands of dollars to even talk to him. But it was like, hey, Derek was like, want to do a free 15-minute video with Bart? All you got to do is promote his course. What's the course? Virgin births. I was like, oh, sick. I'm all for that. I thought we're going to have a sick conversation about other virgin births and whatnot. And I get to the course, and it's about how there's no other virgin births except for Jesus. That's the course. I'm literally selling $50 courses to tell people that there's no other virgin birth. And so this was a huge disaster. And he actually told his PR guy, whoever the hell that is, don't invite me back ever again, because I was kind of like, when it was my turn to do my 15 minutes, I was like, what about this source? What about this source? What about this source? And he was like he had no fucking clue what I was talking about. It was completely, it was like when I showed Bart, when Dan McClellan was talking to Danny Jones, and Danny Jones asked him about the Hilaria Festival, and he was like, huh? Hilaria Festival? I don't know what that is. They started looking on his phone. These Bible scholars don't know shit about antiquity other than the Bible. They don't. They just don't know. There's like they're like specialists that are almost in a way useless in some cases, especially when you're going to do a course on virgin births. You might want to know about other virgin births. Now, the reason why Bart can get away with something like that and successfully pull off a course about no virgin births happening is because on the surface, it looks like what he's saying is true. Because you can go to the TLG and you can type in the Greek word Parthenos, and you can look for virgin births and mythology. You won't find it like that. It's a little more complex than that, is what I'm getting at there. So for one example is when Justin Martyr discusses how Perseus was born of a virgin. And scholars don't know where that source is. We lost it. do you really think Justin Martyr would just make up that Perseus was born of a virgin to do some, like, there probably was a source about Perseus being born of a virgin. We just lost it. We know we lost 98% of our sources from antiquity. So that's probably a safe bet that it's one of those. But there's more than that. And that's what I'm going to present to you. This is the myth of the divine child. It's one of the most central myths of antiquity that is all pervading. It crosses different genres and myths and different cultures. Egypt, Greece, India, and I'm bringing Makunda on in a couple of minutes to bring some sources as well. And it's all throughout Indo-European mythology as well as, you know, Babylonian and Egyptian. And there's it's very simple that there's a chosen child who will be born to do, you know, some sort of salvific role or king. You know, Sargon of Akkad was one of these divine childs, and that's the very basis of it all. But once you start getting close to the Common Era, this divine child starts to become central to the mystery cults, and Christianity comes out of a atmosphere where there's this central divine child myth related to Horus and Harpocrates. And let me start off by sharing a few screenshots that I wanted to present. First of all, the name Mary, and I've talked to Egyptologists about this. This isn't something I came up with. I talked to Karakuni about this. The name Mary actually is an epithet for Isis. Now, it's a common Jewish name. Don't get me wrong. Maryam is a common Jewish name. Some people think it has to do with water. Some people think it has to do with this term beloved. It might actually have Egyptian roots in the word beloved. But the point I'm trying to show now is, where's my screen? There we go. This is just a screenshot of me just showing just a quick Mary, meaning beloved or loving. It's an Isis epithet. And you can find this epithet in the inscriptions in Egypt on like certain structures in Philae, for example, in Alexandria, for example, she's gotten this epithet as Isis the beloved. Now, this is just me just kind of going. I don't even want to make a big deal about this. I didn't bring any sources for that. But what I really want to show people is this. Isis was known to the Greeks as Io. She's the cow goddess. That's why this is why they equated Isis with her, because Isis also is depicted with a cow head in many cases, and so they thought Isis, the goddess of Egypt, was this goddess Io. And you can see, you know, this is from a peer-reviewed article that I was reading where it talks about Alexandra, talks about and Cassandra's account of how Io was kidnapped. Ruin sees first the Carnite sailor hounds, the merchant wolves who carried off the ox-eyed bull maiden. Now watch this. The word for bull maiden, if you look at the Greek right here, tauroparthenon korein. If you can read Greek, you can see my mouse right now. This means bull, virgin, and then kore, which is maiden, but it's also the name of the mother of Dionysus. So it's the holy virgin maiden, right? So it literally calls her the virgin. So we already have a virgin goddess, right? And just did she give birth? Is it a virgin birth? That's the question, right? So we have the Tauroparthenon Korein. There's no question about that. Some people like Bart would even say the word virgin doesn't even show up in these texts. Well, I just found it. So he probably just read the translation and just found bull maid. Oh, that's not a virgin. He doesn't. I don't know. Maybe I'm just guessing. I don't know how he doesn't know this. If you're gonna make a course on this stuff, you should know this stuff. From Lerna to bring her as a fatal bride to the Lord of Memphis and raise the torch of hatred between the two continents. Now, she's the virgin. She's the virgin goddess. That's her epithet. Look right here. It says right here, to call her Pteroparthenos is very different matter. Dr. West refers to this unique epithet and notes the censure of scholiast. And so Aeschylus also calls her a virgin in Prometheus Bound. And this one I want to actually go and look at real quick. He calls her yo bukeros parthenos. So now I'm going to stop sharing my screen for 1 second and pull up another passage, which is Aeschylus Prometheus Bound. Now check this out. I've talked about the whole gadfly, stung by the gadfly concept in philosophy relating to Socrates, and I've also shown people this very passage, and it uses a form of the word Christ for stinging of the gadfly. In this very story right here, I think it's this passage actually. I think if it's not the one before this, where it's around. That's not important right now. What's important is this, where it says, "Do you hear the voice of the maiden with the cow horns?" They always translate this word as maiden for some reason, when it really should be simple. Kore should be maiden, Partheno should be virgin. But I guess it's not that black and white. It's fine. Greek could be fluid like that. But anyways, the word they use is parthenu, with the genitive of parthenos, the virgin. So the horned maiden, basically, the horned virgin, right? How can I hear the gad-driven daughter, the gadfly-driven daughter of Inachus? And now it uses the term kore again. So now you have, once again, she's the virgin and she's the kori, and she's the oistrodinto. So she's the oistros, the stung by the gadfly, and she gives birth, and this is what I'm trying to lead up to. She gives birth to, I let my screen go away. Oh no, it's right here. She gives birth to, here it is. In the cave, she gives birth in a cave to Epaphus. And this is mentioned in Aeschylus. By the way, Aeschylus is 6th century BC, super ancient. And it talks about how there will be a line, a sacred line, almost like the Davidic line. It sounds like the way they talk about it is the firstborn of this line will be Epaphus. He'll be born in a cave. And it's funny because, and the reason why I'm bringing this up is because mangers in 1st century Judea would be in caves almost 100% of the time. A manger is built in it. It's what a manger is. It's an enclosure for animals and found usually, almost always actually, in caves. So there you have like a limestone cave, and you would enclose it, and you put your animals in there for the wintertime. The Orthodox Church, when they chant to the Virgin Mary, they call her the Kore and the Partheno. See, Parthene down here, Holy Parthene. And you can see in the chant, they're calling her Kore Semne Basilissa, the queen maiden. She carries the same titles that you find with Isis, the Virgin, the Kore. It's all there with Mary, right? So if you know the Greek, you can see this stuff. It's right in front of you. There it is, right there, Kore. I just for some reason showed it twice. And so Jarl Fossum, and he writes this in his article. It's called the let's see, what's the name of the article? It's called The Reoccurring Myth of Dionysus, I think it's called. And he talks about how Dionysus, according to the Orphic sources, Kore gave birth to Dionysus in a subterranean cave. And then he talks about, this comes to mind, Epiphanius' report about Ion, reborn every year in the underground shrine to Kore. Once again, Kore is the name of the mother of Dionysus in the Orphic text. It's not Semele. Semele is the second birth. The first birth is Kore, who is Persephone, the queen of the underworld. So it says right here, the realization, and he talks about the Nicene preachers were big into this. The Nicene preachers are Christian, by the way. These are 2nd century Christians who are equating Jesus with Hippocrates and Epaphus. They're literally saying they're looking at pagan mythology and they're equating Jesus with the pagan mythology. So early on, Christians are already noticing this stuff, just like Justin Martyr. And so you had this idea that the holy child is born to Lady Brimo Brimos, the strong one. That's the epithet. Brimo is Dionysus. Iacchus is the name also, and Demeter is also called Iacchus. So Demeter gives birth to Iacchus. It's weird. This is weird. There's a lot of mystery religion stuff going on. So the whole picture isn't clear. A lot of it was secret. Literally, that's what the word mysterion means. The secrets, or crypto, secret, right? And I'll even show you. They even show that it's secret in the story of the divine child. So the cultic explanation is not like the uttered birth of Ion in Alexandria. And it comes to no surprise that Brimo is the name of the queen of the underworld, who's identified as Persephone and Kore. Brimos was obviously her child, Dionysus. So you have Brimo and Brimos. So anyways, this is Ion. This is the mosaic of Ion in Antioch, Syria in the 2nd century. So obviously someone very rich and powerful had this built, this mosaic. Nobody could just put this together if you're a farmer. This is in the same time when Christianity is exploding in the same city. So you could see the closeness of these two groups. Okay, what I want to do now is I wanted to show, let me stop sharing this for a second. I want to show a couple more things before I bring my guest on. I want to show, what did I want to show next? So let me just fly through. Okay, Harpocrates. So here's Harpocrates. Let me do this. Let me do this. Do I want to go to Epaphus or Harpocrates? You know what? Let's go to Ion first. I just mentioned Ion. So, okay, since I already mentioned Ion, who is Ion? What do we have about him? Well, actually, we go to the Suda. I found an online source for the Suda, by the way. These are all the translations. Here's the Greek's originals right here. It's all transliterated, so it's kind of annoying, but it's fine. We can read the translations from these scholars. And Ion, the god who's mentioned of the virgin birth, is very fascinating. So he talks about Heraskos had a natural talent for distinguishing between, by the way, if anyone wants to realize what the date of these is, it's hard to know. The Suda is a collection of sources that the Byzantine scribes are trying to pass down without, what they wanted to do was there was like pieces of literature that they wanted to preserve, but they didn't have enough time or resource to preserve the whole entire source. So what would happen is they would get like an encyclopedia, basically. You would have a whole bunch of sources from like the 3rd to 2nd and 4th, 5th century AD. All of them just kind of lumped together. And like you would have like a random entry. And I think this entry comes from a guy who's from late antiquity. I want to say like in the 3rd century, 4th century AD, something like that. But anyways, Heraskos actually is a natural talent for this, and the reason why we know is because the people he names are from that period. Anyways, religious statues that were animated and those that were not. For as soon as he looked at one, at his heart, he was struck by its sensation of the divine, and let me see. Is my screen showing right now? Can you guys see what I'm looking at? Oh, it's probably tiny. Let me see if I can zoom in a little bit. Here we go. Let me zoom in a little bit. Okay. There we go. Oh, that worked. That worked way better, actually. When you zoom in, it just made it smaller. Okay, it made the whole screen move in. So, okay, soon as he looked, he was struck with a sensation he gave start in his body and his soul, and though seized by the god. So this is a miracle. There's a statue of a god who's literally giving you some sort of divine inspiration or madness that this guy is claiming from antiquity. So the Christians wanted to preserve this text for whatever reason. They thought this was important. If he was not moved in such a fashion, then the statue was soulless and had no share of divine inspiration. In this way, he distinguished the secret statue of Ion, which the Alexandrians worshipped as being possessed by the god. Remember, this is the same god that I just showed you. I'm going to just go back real quick and just show you what god we're talking about here. We're talking about this god. Whoops, that's the wrong thing. We're talking about this. Hold on. Let me stop shit. I'm looking at the wrong thing right now. I looked at the wrong thing. You know how these on-the-fly shows go. You can get a little mixed up. Okay. This god right here. Remember, Antioch, Syria. Here's the emblem of the mosaic of Ion. This is Ion. You can see the word Ion in Greek right there. Chronoi means like time, the plural, like the time gods. And he has 3 avatars, past, past, present, and future. Anyways, Ion is a time god. He has 3 forms. So, back to what we were just reading. Possessed by this god who is both, so the Alexandrians worshipped as being possessed by the god who is both Osiris and Adonis at the same time, according to some mystical union. Now, this is so interesting to me because people will say this, like, James Frazier was wrong. There is no dying and rising god type. They'll say, yes, there's gods. If it's a good scholar, he'll say, yeah, of course there's gods that die and rise, but there is no like type. There is no like archetype of the dying and rising God. But this piece of data right here, to me, is strong indication that there was a type of a dying and rising God. There was this Ion figure who is both Osiris and Adonis at the same time, according to some mystical union. There was also something in Heraskos' nature that rejected defilements of nature. For instance, if he heard any unclean woman speaking, no matter where or how, he automatically got a headache. That's hilarious. And this was taken as a sign she was menstruating. Even his birth had something mystical about it. He said to have issued from his mother holding the shushing figure. Oh, here we go. The secret, right? So the god Ion was holding the shushing figure to his lips, just as the Egyptians portray Horus and Helios. As a result, since the finger was fused to his lips, he needed surgery, and he went through his life with a scar on his lip. Huh? Weird, right? There's another entry in the Suda, Encyclopedia of Ancient Antiquity, if you want to call it that. Epiphanius and Eusebius were both Alexandrian in origin and very expert in the rites accepted by the Alexandrians. Eusebius presided over the rites called Persian, but Epiphanius those concerning Osiris. Not only so, but also of the rites of the god celebrated as Ion. Though I could say who this god is, nevertheless, I am writing in accordance with my present purpose. Epiphanius had a leadership role in these rites. These men were not born into the time-honored style of life, but overlapped and were met with those who assisted him, and they became sources of many blessings of their contemporaries, blah, blah, blah. Damascus wrote this. So Damascus is one of the last Neoplatonists who got kicked out of Athens by Justinian. So this is 6th century AD. So we have this god called Ion, who's central to the Neoplatonist pagans, who's competing with and contemporary with Christianity at the same time, rising around the 1st century to 5th century, that period. We're talking about common era here. So here's another entry. Talk about Heraskios again. And I'm going to skip ahead a little bit later. He says, if he was not moved in such a fashion, blah, 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 he was distinguished as the statue of Ion. And it says the same thing pretty much, which the Alexandrians worshipped as possessed by the god, who is both Osiris and Adonis at the same time, according to the mystical union. And then you see about Horus and Helios. So we have 2 entries saying the same thing. All right. That's fascinating. Why? Because there's more sources that actually, some people go, this is a late source. Who cares? People make shit up all the time. No, this goes back to Plutarch. Let me show you what I mean by that. So Plutarch talks about, let me see if I can pull up Plutarch. Plutarch talks about this god who's called Epaphus. And by the way, Plutarch all throughout this story is doing what I call Middle Platonist syncretism. And this is contemporary. Plutarch lived right around the time the Gospels are being written. Same time. Very contemporaneous with, in fact, his worldview is very, very consistently aligned with a lot of the Christian worldview. Maybe not as much as Jesus himself or John the Baptist, who were more like cynics If you had to compare the John the Baptist and Jesus to any Greek school of thought, they're like cynics. But the Stoics come out of the school of cynicism, and Plutarch was a Stoic. Even though he was a Platonist, he was also a Stoic. That's what Middle Platonism is, by the way. It's Stoicism and Platonism pretty much rolled together. That's what Middle Platonism. He's a Stoic and he's a Platonist, and you can see a lot of their ideas line up. There was even a whole movement of Stoic martyrdoms happening in the 1st century under Nero. They were rebelling against. They're like the lefties of the time period in a way. The Stoics. Anyways, they want to free the slaves and give money to the poor. That's kind of like a Stoic thing. Anyways, it's weird. A lot of conservatives today want to be Stoics. They don't even realize the history of the Stoicism was pretty lefty. Anyways, long story short, I want to get into this part right here. He says, he's talking about Osiris and Dionysus as being the same god. Like he literally says Dionysus is Osiris. Let me just show you that right now real quick. If you watch my channel, you've known that you've seen this before. Look, he says it right here. Osiris is identical with Dionysus. And then let me just go back. So later on, he starts going, well, listen to this. He says, I leave out an account. He cites this guy Menasius from the 2nd century BC, 200 BC, or 3rd century BC, right around 200 BC. He says the annexation, which you know what annexation means, bringing together of Dionysus, Osiris, and Serapis to Epaphus. Isn't that crazy? Osiris, Dionysus, and Serapis are Epaphus. This is what this guy's saying, Menasius. Now check this out. In the same exact book, you have Harpocrates, which means Horus the child. I'll show you in a second. Wait, what? Did I spell it wrong? Where'd it go? Oh yeah, I did. Harpocrates. Here it is right here. Look at this. At the 6th day of the month, at the time of the winter solstice, look at this. Isis, by the way, we already established Isis is the virgin. Isis, when she preserved that she was pregnant, put on herself an amulet on the 6th day, and she gave birth to Harpocrates, imperfect and premature, amid the early flowers and shoots. For this reason, they bring him as an offering the first fruits of the lentils, and the days of their birth they celebrate at the spring equinox. So we already see this connection between the winter solstice, which at this time was fixed on the calendar as December 25th. This is the birth of the Horus the child, way before Christmas. Watch this. And later on in the same book, he talks about the birthdays. They celebrate the birthdays of Horus at the time when the moon and sun are perfectly straight line. At the winter solstice, they lead the cow. There he is right there. The cow giving birth, the virgin cow giving birth at the winter solstice 7 times around the sun. And in circumambulation, this is called the seeking for Osiris, since the goddess in the wintertime yearns for water. They go around the month because in the 7th month of the sun completes the transition from the winter solstice to the summer solstice. It is said that also that Horus, the son of Isis, offered sacrifice to the sun, first of all on the 4th day of the month, as it is written, entitled The Birthdays of Horus. What? He says it twice. I've heard people say that Plutarch made a mistake here. He is not born at the winter solstice. You should just ignore that source. I've heard people tell me, the scholars tell me this all the time. Just ignore Plutarch, dude. It's a mistake. He says it twice, dude. Is it a mistake that he said it twice in the same book? So, okay. Another thing I want to show you, actually, while we're on that right there, let's go to Epaphus. Because in this book, he even says Horus, Serapis, Osiris, and Dionysus are all Epaphus. And Isis, who's called Io, also called Parthenu, or Kore, virgin, maiden, she gives birth to Epaphus. Now, people might want to know, Well, didn't she have sex with Osiris or Zeus? Like, she might have been a virgin. Maybe that's her epithet. But what's the Jesus? We literally get a depiction of light coming down from heaven and the angel telling you that you will be pregnant and there's no sexual unit at all. Well, that's where Bart Ehrman and all these biblical scholars are morons, because this is exactly what happens to Epaphus. Let me show you right now. Epaphus. Where did I put my, Topo's text? So you can see right here, where did it, I shouldn't have their one. Laying on hands. Your account goes with Zeus's begotten calf. Zeus's begotten calf. Epaphus, a truly named, laying on the hands. That's what his name is. He's just been touched by Zeus. Laying on the hands. And then it says, right, and it says later on in that same book, that's Aeschylus. I'm trying to find Herodotus from the 5th century BC. He says, is this the one right here? I should have had this ready. Here it is, right here. Oh, Herodotus says, now Apis Epaphos is a calf born of a cow. We already showed you. She's the virgin cow. Literally Parthenos. She's the virgin cow who, after this is not permitted to conceive any other offspring, the Egyptians say that a flash of light comes down from heaven upon this cow, and she produces Apis. There's no virgin births, guys. They don't exist. Only Jesus. Jesus is special, guys. There's no virgin births. I'm going to pay me $50 now. I just told you some really good knowledge. There's no virgin births. Don't look at Gnostic Informant. Get him away from us. We're gonna censor that guy. Get him off my channel. Yeah, no more virgin births. Only Jesus. This is literally the top of the line biblical scholars are pushing out there. Just saying. I'm not some anti-academic guy. I'm defending. I think academia is great and we need it. And I think I'm constantly reading scholars. This is where I learn all this from. I'm not coming up with this on my own. I'm not some sage over here. I'm reading experts. I'm reading peer-reviewed papers. I'm getting Jarl Foss. I literally just cited Jarl Fossum. So I'm just saying certain scholars suck. That's just the way it is. So you can see it right there. Epaphus was born of a virgin, Isis. Now, I want to show you a couple more things. Real quick. Harpocrates, as I showed you. Remember what we saw on the Suda, where it talks about Harpocrates, or it said Ion, not Harpocrates. This is the weird thing. Ion, the statue of Ion that had a miracle connected with it, looks like this, saying shh, Musterion. He's the virgin-born child who tells you to shh. It's a secret. That's Harpocrates. And this goes back very ancient to the, I think, Bronze Age Egypt, where you finally were. Well, no, Harpocrates is a Greek word. So Harpocrates means Harpacarid, Horus the child. But I think the idea of Horus doing this is pretty ancient. I could be wrong. I know for at least, it's at least Hellenistic. It's at least 300 years before Jesus. But anyways, you have Harpocrates telling you to be quiet because this is a secret. And so I just want to show you some examples. Look, you can see him down here. There is Isis right there, by the way. Isis, Serapis, and Harpocrates, their child. There's the holy triad, right? The holy triad, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. There he is again right there. And notice he has like a lock coming out of his hair. He has that like dreadlock thing coming out. And he's telling you to be quiet. That's a Phoenician Harpocrates. This is from Phoenicia, this one is found, right? Where Jesus was the story of Jesus takes place, right? Interesting. Varro, what does Varro say? These gods are the same these gods are the same as those who in Egypt are called Serapis and Isis. though Harpocrates with his finger makes to me to be quiet. The first gods were in Latium are called Saturn and Ops. That's interesting. So literally the child, this is so important, what Vero's saying right here. The child of sky and earth. It doesn't matter what you plug in. It doesn't matter if you call it Zeus and Semele, Zeus and Kori, right? Kori's the underworld queen. Zeus is the king of the heavens, Olympus. She's the queen of the underworld, Hades. You can say Uranus and Gaia, heaven and earth. The point is, it is the eternal myth of heaven and earth combining and bringing up the divine child who's Dionysus. Dionysus is the earth, the life that's brought forth from the rain impregnating the earth, brings forth crops, the swelling of fruits, wine, all types of, figs and olives, olive oil. It all comes from the earth, and it's all produced of the swelling of fruits, which is life and Dionysus. It's the third member of the triad. It's Zoe. So that's Dionysus. Ovid, upon her Isis's brow stood the crescent moon horns. There's the horns again, right? She's the cow goddess. Garlanded with glittering heads of golden grain, grace of royal dignity, and her side, baying the dog Anubis, dappled Apis and Bubastis, and the god who holds his finger to his lips for silence sake. By the way, there are images of, this just reminded me, there are images of Eros with Aphrodite. In Rome, there's mosaics and paintings from the 1st century and 2nd century or 1st century BC in that little period where you find Aphrodite and Eros with going like this. Because Eros gets equated with Harpocrates. So what I'm trying to show you is Jarl Fossum calls it a theocracia. And he thinks Christianity is competing with Platonist theocracia, which is the Platonists are basically saying, we know the myths are just stories, but they mean something real. There's a real metaphysical truth behind this. So you can equate certain gods together and you can bring them together. You can bring together Dionysus, you can bring together Osiris, you could bring together Adonis and Attis and whatnot. You could put them together. They're earth daimon beings, born from the union, which is heaven and earth, those type of things. And so Eros can be kind of lumped in this. He's the god of love. He's the child, right? And you sort of get all these syncretisms popping up. And these become secret mystery cults in the Roman Empire, all over the place. See, Harpocrates, Greece, 100 BC. He looks like Eros. He's got the wings. Look at the fruits. He's got the grapefruit, the grapes, and he's literally the Bacchic child or Eros. It's a whole bunch of ideas getting put together into one thing. And so, in 2018, they discovered a bone depicting the god dating back to the 1st century BC. And he had the god with 2 satyrs. Who's the king of the satyrs? Dionysus is. It's all essential. It always brings you back to Dionysus. That's the most important thing, which I'm going to close on right now, which I want to show you right now. So before I show you my last thing that I want to show you, I just want to go back to Plutarch, where he talks about this statue. And this is in Manetho as well. So Ptolemy II, or I think Ptolemy I, actually, Ptolemy I, yeah, Ptolemy's savior, Ptolemy Soter, he saw in a dream a statue of Pluto, the underworld king, right? And the statue told him to go to Sinope and find the statue of the god. So they go and get the statue of Pluto, and Ptolemy, that it was the statue was actually Serapis. It's not Pluto. But watch this. Serapis is Pluto. So then he says, the same Heraclitus, the philosopher, says the Hades and Dionysus are the same. To honor who they rage and rave. So you have Hades, Pluto, Dionysus, Osiris, Serapis, right? And he says, it is better to identify Osiris with Dionysus and Serapis with Osiris, who received the appellation. For this reason, Serapis is a god of all people. So Serapis is a syncretic deity, bringing together the different traditions of Dionysus, Adonis, Attis, Osiris, Pluto, and Hades, and all these like chthonic, worldly, earthly deities who die and resurrect, by the way. And then he even talks about how he took the sacred house from Athens. Where is it? Let me see if I can find it in here real quick. I think it's in here. It's somewhere in here he says he brings from Athens the Eleusinian family, which is I forgot the name of the family. I literally should know this. But there was an ancient priesthood it's like the Levites, if you want to think about it like that, in Athens, who were running the Eleusinian mysteries. It's called something like Eleupadia or something. It's I'll think of it later. I'll think of the name of the family, but it's in here somewhere where he says that Ptolemy actually brought them into Alexandria to control this priesthood. So not only do you have a god from Sinope who's depicted as Pluto, with the dog Cerberus and the child Harpocrates and Isis, they have this statue set up in the temple, but they bring in the priesthood from Eleusis to run the actual priesthood. So it's the Eleusinian mysteries and Serapian mysteries are being brought together into one syncretic mystery cult in Egypt. Does anyone know the name of that family, by the way? Let me see if the name in the comments can tell me. No, it's not that. It's the family that ran Eleusis. Somebody in the comments might be able to tell. It's not Orsini, no. Eumolpid, Eumolpida in the Greek. The Eumolpid family. I just thought of it. It just popped in my head all of a sudden. So, like, I'll spell it out in the chat. Eumolpid clan. And so they bring the statue in, and it's this amazing syncretism is happening. Now, the thing I wanted to close on was the oh yeah. So Epiphanius actually tells us that Ion was born of a virgin, and he says this. Let me share my screen real quick. Epiphanius tells us that I just took this from Charles Fossman's book. In Panarion, or medicine chest, that's what Panarion means, the antidotes to the poisons of sex and idolatry, Epiphanius tells the following story. He says, to the leaders of the idolaters, in many places they hold a great feast on the very night of Epiphany. January 6th, guys. January 6th. He's talking about Christian Epiphany. So that those who have placed their hopes in the error may not seek truth. First of all, in Alexandria, they hold a festival which is called the Choreum, which is a huge temple, namely the sacred precinct of Kore. There he is, the maiden, the virgin. They say that's the mother of Dionysus. That's the name of the mother of Dionysus. They stay awake the entire night singing hymns to the idol to the accompaniment of flutes. They keep it up the entire night, and after the cock crow, torchbearers descend in an underground shrine and bring up a wooden statue of a naked litter having a seal of a cross, and I imagine these are ankhs, inlaid with gold upon the forehead and two other such heels on both hands, as well as another two upon the knees themselves, making together 5 seals impressed with gold. They carry the statue in a circle 7 times. We just heard this about Isis and Harpocrates. This is, you should be seeing what I'm trying to lay down right now. Same exact, this is a different god. I'm not even talking about Horus anymore. Plutarch was talking about Horus. This is Ion now. So this should be blowing your mind. 7 times around the temple of a company of flutes, kettle drums, and hymns, revealing, carry it back to the place underground. Ask what these rites mean. They say, today at this hour, the Kori, meaning the virgin, has engendered Ion, or gave birth to Ion. And by the way, this in parentheses, you might be thinking, did he add that himself? No, that's in the Greek. It actually says, Kori, Partheno, has engendered Ion. He says, but he uses both words in the Greek. I checked it myself. So that's crazy. So you have a virgin birth, and so okay. Last thing I want to show you guys before I close this out, the Epiphany. I mentioned the Epiphany, right? Diodorus Siculus tells a story about the Epiphany of Dionysus. He's talking about Dionysus all throughout the story. And he talks about Cadmus. Cadmus is the uncle of Dionysus, and she begat several children. One of them, Semele. That's the mother of the second mother of Dionysus, the second time he's born. She was violated by an unknown person. This is the secret, right? Became pregnant, and after 7 months gave birth to a child whose appearance was such that the Egyptians hold be Osiris. What? So when he uses the word Osiris as a place-in for Dionysus. Here's that theocracia. Now, such a child is not usually brought into the world alive, either because it is contrary to the will of the gods or because the law of nature does not permit it. When Cadmus found out that it would have taken place, having the same time a reply from an oracle commanding to observe the laws of his fathers, he gilded the infant and paid appropriate sacrifices on the ground that it had been some sort of epiphany of Osiris among men. There it is, the word Epiphanies. Epiphanias. The fatherhood of the child attributed to Zeus in the same way, magnifying Osiris as averting slander from his violated daughter. And this is the reason why the tale was given out of the Greeks to the fact that Semele, the daughter of Cadmus, was the mother of Osiris by Zeus. So, and there's basically the whole idea was there was no secret, there was no graping happening. She was actually just miraculously giving the child by Zeus. That's the secret. That there was no unknown person. And Epiphanius, I'm not going to go back. I'm not going to pull that up right now because I'll have to dig through it. Epiphanius actually gives accounts of early Christian sects who believed that Jesus was born after 7 months. I'm not kidding. They said Jesus was born premature after 7 months, and they say that and then there was rumors that Jesus' mother was violated by an unknown person. So you have Epiphanius is telling us all this, and he tells us that Ion's born of a virgin, same exact book. So all this evidence is pointing to something, some sort of tradition about the secret divine child who's literally a virgin born at the winter solstice, right? And his name is Epaphus. So last thing before I bring on my guest, I already showed you who Epaphus is, by the way. There's a beautiful article from thehouseofvines.com. So I'm giving a shout out to houseofvines.com. Hal the Epaphian, the golden calf. And they put together, by the way, it's a beautiful painting. This is the December 25th festival, bringing in the bleeder of the child, and Osiris and Isis bringing the child, right? So Hyginus, in his Fabulae in 150, talks about Epaphus. After Juno saw that Epaphus, born of a concubine, ruled such a great kingdom, she saw to that he should be killed while hunting. So Juno, you know who Juno is in Greek, right? Hera, raging Hera. Watch this. This is what happens in the Gospels when they know Jesus is born. The rage of Herod, same exact word, but masculine. Hera and Herod are from the same root. It comes from the word for hero. The same name, but it's a real person. So I think what happened is the author of Mark thought, wow, that name Herod is a lot like Hera. Well, let's throw in a story about him raging like. So anyways, he should be killed and encourage the Titans to drive Jove from the kingdom to restore it to Saturn. Now, check this out. I got to share my screen one more time on another thing that I have saved up real quick. So, where'd it go? So, okay. This is the wrong. Okay, so here we go. Typhon, son of Earth, Apollo. So there's stories about the gods having to flee the wrath of either Typhon or Hera, depending on the version. And so they flee to Egypt. This is where Jesus and his mother and father, they flee to Egypt as well. So Dionysus takes on the shape of a goat, and they flee, and they have to come back when things are better. Apollodorus literally talks about the word they use here, heros thumon. Heros thumon. I want you to pay attention to this and embed it in your brain. Heros thumon. Now check this out. The Isthmian Games were instituted, but Zeus alluded that the wrath of Hera by turning Dionysus into a kid. And Hermes took him and brought him to the nymphs who dwelt in Nysa. Afterwards, Zeus changed into the stars and named them Hyades. See this? This is the Orphic hymn to Dionysus, Lucios. This is the Greek version. And it literally calls him, where is it? Where is the passive? Where is it? Ewa. There's the Ewa chant right here. Epaphy. It literally calls Dionysus Epaphy. He's the Epaphus. They're calling it's a vocative way. It's vocative. So it's like Epaphy, like you're Epaphus. Like he literally calls Dionysus Epaphus in the Orphic hymn to Dionysus. So okay, that I wanted to show real quick. But look at this. If we go to Mark, you can see Mark 1. Let me see. Is Herod? Oh, is that Mark? Is that? I'm thinking of Matthew. My bad. So if we go to Matthew, let me just go to Matthew real quick. Whoops. Look at this. It literally says, Herod called the Magi secretly and found out from them what had happened. Go and search. And look at this. I think it's in this passage right here. Here it is right here. Herod, so when they had gone out, the angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream and says, get up, take the child, and escape to Egypt. This is exactly what happens in the Apollodorus' story from 300 BC. They take the child god Dionysus, and they flee to Egypt. It says, stay here until for Herod is going to search for the child and kill him. So Herod and Hera both want to kill the divine child. And then it says, look at this. This is so crazy. When Herod realized that he had been outwitted by the Magi, he was furious. There's the rage. The raging, where is it? I think it uses the same word. I wonder if it does use the same word. He was furious. So tote Herodos idon magon. Yes, it does. Right there. Holy shit. It uses the same word for rage. It's a different form of it. It's the past tense. That's why you see the epsilon right here. Past tense. Ethumothe. He was raging. The rage of Hera is in the Gospels. The rage of Hera is in the Gospels. This divine child story, guys. It's right there. This didn't happen in real life. It's a myth right in front of you. It's Hera's rage for Dionysus. Anyways, a few more things I want to show you. So I want to go back to, I want to show you where Jesus also, in Mark 1, he tells you to be quiet. Be quiet. He does a miracle in the first chapter of Mark, and he says, Jesus sent them away with a strong warning. See that you don't tell anyone. There it is right there. The divine child tells you, this is all secret. Don't tell anyone. And he's constantly doing this throughout all four of the Gospels. That's a major Christian theme is shh, quiet. This is a secret. Now, before I bring on my guests, I just want to bring up this amazing article. because and before I bring this up, so Epaphus, right? In the Orphic hymns, what I just showed you, where it literally calls him Epaphus, Dionysus in the Orphic hymns is called Epaphi in the vocative. And also in a different hymn to Misa, who's the secret female version of Dionysus, it literally says, call Thesmophorus, spermatic god Dionysus, of various names, who bears the leafy rod, Misa, ineffable, pure, sacred queen, twofold Iacchus, that's the name of the divine child right there, male and female seen. And then it says, right, I'm going to skip down a little bit. It says, or if exalting in the fertile plains with your dark mother Isis. He's the son of the virgin Isis. Right there. Right there. It's right there. Isn't that crazy? All right. Now, I just want to get last, this is, I promise this is the last. You had this amazing article where it literally puts together all of the sources that mention Epaphus. I mean, obviously Topos Text has it too, but they really do a good job putting this all together. So you have the Juno, who's also called Hera, raging after the divine child to kill him, and he has to escape. We just showed you that. We showed you Herod, whose name is literally the same, but masculine. Hera and Herod are the same name, basically. One's masculine, one's feminine, and they both thumo. They both rage when they found out that the child is born. That's not a coincidence, dude. That's a literary trope. That is a mimesis. It's mimetic mythology. Orphic hymn to Lucios, the one I just showed you. So this is the translation of the one I just showed you. Sorrow-hating joy to mortals, lovely-haired Epaphian, you are a redeemer and a revealer whose thyrsus drives to a frenzy, who's kind-hearted to all gods and mortals who see his light. Call upon you now, sweet bringer of fruit. You burst forth from the earth in a blaze, Epaphian, son of two mothers, the divine child, the twice born, the resurrected. He dies and resurrects with the second mother. You guys know that, right? His firstborn mother is Cori, and then Hera rages, sends the Titans, they rip him apart, and then he gets born again. He's born again, literally, from Semele, this born of two mothers. Diodorus Siculus, Dionysus, as men say, was born to Zeus by Io. Wait, what? I thought he was born to Semele. I thought he was born to Cori. Now he's born to Io, Isis? Are you kidding me? Do you not see what I'm trying to lay down? Do you see the theocracia yet? The daughter of Inachus became the king of Egypt and appointed the initiatory rites of the land. Euripides Scholiast, he literally says, Bleo tu libules tes epaphu tu ius. Ius. Cadmus is a descendant of Epaphus, since the Agenor is the son of Belus, son of Libya, daughter of Epaphus, son of Io. Here's another fragment from the Curran papyri. The first of these was, so this is very fragmentary piece we found, Orphic fragment right here. The first of these was born from the mother, the second from the thigh. The third birth was when having been dismembered by the Titans. He came back to life after Rhea gathered together his limbs, and in his Mosopoeia, Euphorion is in agreement with these accounts, and the Orphics are absolutely go on about it. Apollodorus. At last, she came to Egypt, where she recovered her original form and gave birth to a son, Epaphus, by the river Nile. Hera besought the Curetes, raging Hera, Thumos Hera, raging, sends the Curetes to make away with Epaphus and make away with what they did. When Zeus learned of it, he slew the Curetes. Notice how it's not the Titans in this version. Notice how many versions there are of this story, how widespread this myth is. This is so... We lost 99% of our sources from antiquity, but somehow we have 30 different versions of this one story? Are you kidding me? Are you not piecing together what I'm laying down? But Io set out in a search for the child. She roamed all over Syria. because there it was revealed to her the wife of the king of Byblos was nursing her son, and having found Epaphus, she came to Egypt and was married to Telegonus, whom they reigned over the Egyptians. Plutarch on Isis and Osiris. The public ceremonies which the priests perform the burial of Apis, when they convey his body on an improvised bier, do not in any way come short of a Bacchic procession, for they fasten skins of fawns about themselves and carry Bacchic wands and indulge in shoutings movements exactly as those who go under the spell of Dionysiac ecstasies. Servius, commentary on Virgil, he says, the mystic fan of Iacchus, the cribrum, and the threshing floor, he calls it a mystic fan of Iacchus because the rites of Father Liber had reference to the purification of the soul, and men were purified through his mysteries as grain is purified by fans. It's the grain, it's the what is it called? The separating the wheat from the chaff. That's the motif. It is because of this that Isis is said to have placed the limbs of Osiris when they had been torn to pieces. Notice how now it's Osiris. Is it Osiris? Is it Epaphus? Is it Dionysus? Is it Horus? Who knows? It's all of them. Notice how the story is the same, but they changed the characters, and this is nuts. When Osiris was torn to pieces by Typhon on a sieve, Father Liber is the same person. He whose mysteries the fan plays a part, because as we've said, purifies souls, whence he is called Liber, because he liberates, and it is he who Orpheus said was torn asunder by the giants. Some add that Father Liber was called by the Greeks Liktites. Moreover, the fan is called by them Lignum, in which it is said to have been placed directly after he was born from the mother's womb. Others explain it by being called mystic, by saying that the fan is larger wicker vessel in which peasants, because it is of large size, are wont to heap it their first fruits and consecrate it to Liber and Libera. By the way, there's one of the last triads of ancient Rome was the Aventine triad, and I want people to see this real quick. This is so crazy. I keep thinking of new things to tell you guys. This is so crazy. Everyone wants to talk about Christianity as being the first religion that was like for the plebs, for the poor, for the women, for the foreigner. Nope. Go back. It's Dionysus. There was the Aventine triad. This is not the gods of Julius Caesar or the aristocrats. This is the gods of the plebs. This is the triad. This is the pleb triad. So the cult was established in 493 on the Aventine Hill, traditionally associated with the Roman plebs. So this is the pleb triad. This is the God who's coming to liberate you. He's coming to free the slaves. He's coming to, bring equality to the world. He's the opposite of Apollo, as Friedrich Nietzsche brilliantly points out. So there's a few more of these I want to show you. Furthermore, Titanica and the accounts of dismemberment of Osiris was revivification. So here we go. The accounts of the dismemberment of Osiris and his resurrection. I'm just going to flat out say I'm so tired of these translations that are scared to use the word resurrection, even if it's the same word in Greek. I'm telling you, this happens all the time. The same words that they use in Greek, Anastasis, and the other word that they use, that they'll use regeneration or reawakening. Come on, use the same word. It's resurrection, guys. It's resurrection. Call it a resurrection. Don't be scared of these Bible scholars. It is not an accident that in Argreonia, as they celebrate, the women search for Dionysus as though he ran away, and then desist that they may have taken refuge with the Muses. So that's pretty much it. That beautiful website. I just want to shout out to the House of Vines with this article. Let me just drop this link in the chat right now so people can have a direct link to it. Now, with that being said, I'm bringing on my guest, Mukunda, here. Mukunda, what is going on, man? What did you think about all that? And what kind of... I want to give the floor to you. I've talked for so long now, and I want to hear your thoughts on this and where you want to take it. Make sure you unmute yourself.
Yeah. Hey, what's up, man? Yeah, this is interesting stuff. End of the day, these ancient cultures have a lot of unique births, right? Like whether you talk about in the Mithraic, or not Mithraic, but the Persians, right? You have the Shayoshant, who's supposed to be born eventually of a virgin. Even like Buddha. Buddha is born of, well, it's interesting. Buddha's birth is actually very interesting. He's actually conceived of in a dream. And he doesn't have a father. He has a father insofar as earthly father, but he's conceived of him in the dream. His mother Yashodhara has a dream that a six-tusked elephant enters into her womb and all this other stuff, and that's representing coming down from a heavenly stage into the earthly stage. And in Mahabharata, almost every single character that is of relevance has a divine birth of sorts, right? So you have like the main characters of Mahabharata, the Pandavas, the five brothers, all born of gods because their earthly father, can't touch their mothers because he was cursed. So they have a divine like mantra in which the gods come down and give their energy into the women to give birth to children. And then on top of that, even their wife, Draupadi, is born of fire through like a Vedic fire. So like these concepts of birth being unique, I think are pretty prevalent across the ancient world in terms of cosmic religious figures. So the claims by as Jesus as being that unique, I don't think it makes sense to me. And in fact, it's in some ways it's even more problematic, and because Jesus doesn't, God doesn't ask Mary if you're gonna have my kid. He just says, "Oh, you're gonna have my kid," right? There's just it's no different from like Zeus or anyone else doing this. Oh, you're muted.
Oh, I said, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But this is how like the idea of some sort of unique birth is there to kind of show the difference between this particular being and everyone else, right? Like Indra is born, actually in the Rig Veda, one of the most interesting things, Indra refuses to be born through the vaginal canal. He wants to be born from the side. So he bursts out of the side of his mother, Prithvi, Earth, and bursts out of her side instead of coming down the canal. And similarly, Buddha is born from the side of his mother and not the canal and the normal birth process. So these stories are very much connected to that they serve cosmic functions and not normal functions in this world.
Yeah, and it's sort of trying to show the reader that this is something like this was divinely brought together, like heaven and earth are literally being brought together for this child, and everything's pointing to this. The stars are aligned. It's trying to sort of illustrate something special has happened. This is not normal. This is special. Right. This is like the most amazing thing that ever happened type of thing. The star in the sky, the magi, that type of thing.
But the flip side also happens for bad characters in the Mahabharata, right? The Mahabharata, like for example, like the Duryodhana and his 100 brothers are born when their mother hears news that her sister-in-law had a kid, and then now that sister-in-law's kid is going to be king, so she hits her stomach, causes an abortion of sorts, and has just like a lump of flesh. And then Vyasa, the author of the text, takes these lumps of flesh and puts into 100 pots, and then they're born, like in these like mixtures, right? So this idea that supernatural beings are born in supernatural ways, and they have a function in the narration of that particular story, right? So whereas like when you think about Greek mythology or even the Bible, for example, like people love to say that the Bible is like the greatest story ever told. It's not a story. It's a bunch of little stories that don't have no narrative cohesion in them from the front to end. They're just stories connected to each other by the fact that maybe God's involved or Israel's connected. There's no narrative happening here in a real sense, right? Like even the Iliad's a self-contained narrative, Odyssey self-contained narrative, but they're not like a full-blown story. So for example, what I would say is my argument for a large part is the Mahabharata is the only text that is a story from front to end. It's a story that has an origin, beginning, a middle, end, and then it shows a reversion back to origin. So it's a full, complete history story of a family in some sense. And I think the motifs in that story are deeply connected across the entire Indic world.
You know what's crazy is that Augustus, he's born. I should actually start with Alexander. There's a story of Alexander the Great where he's born of the union between Zeus and his mother Olympias, and they literally say like Philip is not his real father in the Alexander romance. And Zeus comes down in the form of a serpent and impregnates Olympias. That's how the story's told.
Yeah.
Then Suetonius in the second century tells the story of Augustus, and he says the same thing happened to him. That Augustus's mother, Atia, was chosen, and that Zeus came down in the form of a serpent and impregnated her, and there was a star in the sky.
Yeah.
And the author says the last time this star came was when Alexander the Great was born. It's the same omen as Alexander the Great. But this is so funny because there's actually another story that tells this of Mithridates. I just found an article about this, pretty good one, where Mithridates is born. So they have, actually, let me show this coin. Where is it? Here it is. This coin right here. Mithridates the sixth. There's coins of the comet that marked his birth. So when he was born, there was a comet, and they thought that he had a genealogy that brought him to Cyrus on his mother's side and Alexander on his father's side.
Right.
So he was like this master, basically, this chosen Davidic type of thing going on. But anyways, there's his father gets killed according to the story, and he's born, and they're chasing down the child. He has to go on the run. This is what they say about him. So you have another running away from the enemies type of thing, like Jesus does, or the myths that I already talked about. And then you have the return of the king and like massacres and all this stuff. Like you have these tropes that pop in these stories, and I think they're so what I notice is that the tropes are recycled, but the stories are unique. So they're not copying or plagiarizing. They're retelling using these very divine attributes.
Right, but I think that's what human beings still do today. These stories. I mean, like the nature of telling a story is built into us. So I think there are universal tropes that we all play into and all engage with. And I think these mythic tropes going back to the past are the first real instances that we have, preserved of them. So we see them as the original, but it's entirely possible that this stuff goes back further than that, and they've just been maintained and captured in like the Greco-Roman period and classical antiquity and the ancient era. I mean, but here's an interesting part too. Like even after, like let's say the ancient world, the mythological stories in India too, and across the world, they use signs to figure out, like Mithridates. Like they might use astrology to see what's the stars and how they set up. They also look at like, do they have like symbols on the hands or feet, or how their knees put together. Like they do like a assessment of the child when it's born and make like this prediction about the child and their future glory, or how they're connected to some deities. You find that in actually a lot of epigraphical evidence across like history and time.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. What are some of these, like, I know Hinduism has a whole bunch of myths and birth narratives. Like, what about Krishna and, Shiva, that type of stuff?
Yeah, I mean, so Shiva is interesting. He's got two birth narratives. One birth narrative is he's born of Brahma's anger. So he's called, he's born of the anger of Brahma, and in that, from Brahma's anger, after he creates his 5 mind-born sons, something occurs, and I forget the story. And then from that rage, Shiva's born. And then when Shiva's born, Shiva starts crying, and that the word for crying is rud. So when Rudra means that the howler, because he's howling,
really?
crying. Yeah, and it's connected to Rudra, or Shiva is connected to another class of beings called Marutas. Marutas are basically connected to Vayu, which is the wind god. So while Shiva and the Marutas together represent the storm, like a crazy, chaotic storm. So Shiva's name is Rudra. The Marutas means do not cry. All right, and they represent like the two aspects of the silence in a storm and the raging storm. So those two elements are from a symbolic level. So Shiva has one birth that comes from that. He's given names for he has 11 names where you get the 11 Rudras. You get like Bhava. There's each name means something, right? And then Krishna's birth is different because Krishna was born within the story in like heroic time, let's say. And like, so traditional Hindu mythology would say he was born probably 5,000 years ago, around 3,100 something BCE is the time they would give according to the calendar. Krishna's birth is he's the last of 8 kids. The 7 kids before him are killed because there's a prophecy.
Really?
That
8 kids?
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
what David's the 8th son. And Ashmun in Phoenician mythology, who's another guy who dies and resurrects, by the way, is the 8th son of the god Siddiq or Melchizedek, the king Siddiq.
Right. So there's two reasons
crazy.
for this.
I didn't know that.
There's 2 reasons for this. One is the mythology is there are what's known as 8 Vasus, or the 8 lords of space: north, south, east, west, northeast, and then there's so these Vasus are gods of which Dayus Pater is one of them. So Dayus Pater in the story of Mahabharata takes birth as the guy Bhishma, and they're cursed in heaven by Ganga or by a sage, and the curse for them was you have to take birth in the world. So Ganga, goddess Ganges, says, I will bring you to earth, but I'll kill all of you. Except I'll have to have one of you has to have a full life on the earth. So what happens is she gives birth to 7 kids, drowns them all, and the 8th kid, Bhishma, is the one that remains, and he's Dayus Pater. And the flip side of that story is Krishna. He's born his 7 siblings before him. Well, technically 8 siblings before him, because his brother, the older brother, Balaram, is transferred in vitro from his mother's womb into his father's other's wife's womb. And then another child is born to his friend, and it's switched. And then that switching occurs in which Krishna is saved and the other child's killed. So I mean, it's so because of this prophecy that Krishna is going to be born to kill Kamsa.
Wow. So you kind of do have the raging thing going on there.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot. So I'm giving a really quick assessment here. I mean, or breakdown, but there's purposes for this, like symbolic purposes of why these.
But she plays the
these
role
numbers.
of Hera in a way by the first 7 children. In a way,
yes, Ganga does. Yeah, Ganga does. The purpose of Ganga's, I mean, is again by touch in the Hindu world. Touching Ganga purifies you. So the killing of a child in Ganga and this by Ganga is representing them going back to heaven.
Right, because that's weird. If you get purified by Ganga, but they're literally being dropped into Ganga and dying.
By Ganga herself.
You're right. So that's a weird, esoteric, secret thing about they're just not these aren't the chosen children that she wants. She wants the 8th one.
Right, because she's trying to get these 7 before him, who are the gods known as Vasus, not to be on Earth. They don't want to go through earthly existence. But one of them has to.
The king whose child these are, he's seeing this and freaking out, right?
So the promise they made is
I'm familiar with this story. I've heard this before.
Yeah. So she said to him before she got with him that I will only get with you if you do not ever question me.
And what
if you question me, I'm done.
What's the name of this
Shantanu. His name is Shantanu.
One of the original Pandava kings.
Yeah.
Is that? Yeah.
Yeah. He is the ancestor of the Pandavas, right? So so he the first 7 he's like, no, I'm not saying anything. And then when she's about to do the 8th, he says, what are you doing? And then she says, the moment you said that to me, I'm done. So she takes the child with her to heaven to be trained by the gods. So Bhishma is trained by the gods, raised by the gods, and returns to Shantanu when he's young, when he's like in his teens, and then
No. I want you. It's fine.
His stepmother is actually interesting too. She's born of the king who is obsessed with, who see this like celestial nymph, and he gets super excited, and he basically, his seed emits from his body. He ejaculates, and that ejaculation is caught in like a leaf, and he gives a leaf to an eagle to carry to his wife. But on the way, the eagle drops it, falls into a fish, and the fish gets impregnated. And then from that is born this female child named Matsyagandha, who becomes basically the lineage continues through her because Bhishma has no children.
You know what's so crazy about you telling me that, like, you reminding me about this story reminds me how ubiquitous this trope is of the divine child being born and having you either being like given up for adoption, putting in a river to float, like Moses. Moses is has a divine child narrative going on where he's put into a basket, floats down a river. Sargon of Akkad. I believe Krishna as well is put on a bat. Is that a version? No. Is there something going on?
No. So what happens with Krishna is, like I said, when he's being transported to escape the prison, there's like a divine sleep that happens across the prison. So everyone passes out, and then the doors magically open, and his father Vasudeva carries him on his head across the river in a basket, and it's a torrential downpour. And then like a snake comes over and covers them, because Vishnu is connected to the snake called Adi Shesha, which means the first Shesha means remnant. It means the first remnant, meaning the remnant from previous universes. The remnant from previous universes becomes the snake. His other name is Ananta, which means
that's
infinite.
like the Orphic snake, because that's the regeneration of the cosmos.
Right, and his other name is Ananta, which means infinite. Right, the one without end. It's like the Ouroboros, right? The snake eating its own tail. So so Krishna is in the basket there. But the closest story you're connecting to Moses is going to be Karna. Karna is put into a basket and then pushed down a river because his mother.
Right? Karna, he's the king.
He becomes a king. He's got a lot of like self-esteem issues through the text, and he's kind of a bad guy.
Is he the one that fights with
Arjuna?
He fights with Arjuna. I thought so not Dama, Duryodhana.
Duryodhana.
Duryodhana,
Duryodhana,
the warrior that fights against the Pandavas.
Yeah, he's the one that hates them. So Karna is his best friend, who kind of like
Karna's on the side of this guy.
Yeah.
No, okay, that makes sense now. That makes sense.
He instigates Duryodhana to do these things, but Karna is like the son of the sun. He's actually their brother. They don't know it through the text.
Aren't they all related? They're just like, it's like a civil war.
Yeah, so they're cousins. So Duryodhana's cousins with the Pandavas, but Karna is the oldest brother of the Pandavas. They just don't know it, and he doesn't know it till much later. And then when he finds out, he's like, I don't care. I'm going to fight on my friend's side. And then Krishna knows, but he's like, all right, let it happen.
Krishna doesn't care about it. Krishna wants them to fight. Krishna tells Arjuna, you have to kill your uncle Bhishma. This war has to happen. You have to take action.
Yeah. But I mean, it's funny because in the beginning section, not funny, but it's the beginning section of the text. So Mahabharata is massive, right? 100,000 verses, one of the largest texts in the world. One of the beginning books. There's 18 books. The first book is called Adi Parva, which is Book of Origins or Book of Beginnings. And within that, there's a sub chapter called Avatarana Parva, which means the descent of the gods. So all the gods descend into human form, and the reason is the Earth in a projection of herself as a cow goes seeking help from the gods, being I'm overburdened. The kings, the people are destroying me. They're taking over the world. They're ripping apart nature, whatever, and they're overburdening. So Krishna's objective is I'm going to lighten your burden, and I'm doing this by this war, and that all the gods, the kings, the demons, we're going to unburden the earth. And so his purpose is that.
Yeah, and then you have Romulus and Remus, who are also they're separated from the mother, and they have to like live in the wilderness, suckling on a wolf, and then they're found and brought to Latium, and
right.
So there's all these stories about a divine child, a chosen child who somehow has like these rough upbringing, where either they're trying to be murdered or even murdered and brought back to life in the case of Dionysus.
Yeah.
Or they have to like go and live in nature and come back as some sort of test or something. And what's his name writes about this? Joseph Campbell thinks this is like part of a way the ancients told stories, and that we still do this today.
Yeah, I mean, so the thing to think about is the ancients always, in some sense, were grappling between the city and then the wilderness, right? This is always a tension that they're feeling, because unlike us, our lives we're pretty insulated. We don't see animals that often. We're not in constant danger when we leave the confines of a city from being attacked by other animals or whatever it is. In that time, they did. There's something scary and unique about the life in a forest or outside the city, which I think is reflected in a lot of these mythologies, where where the forest is a place to go to conquer oneself, right? Like the Ramayana, Rama sent to the forest for 14 years. Mahabharata, the Pandavas go for 13 years. All these things happen in a forest where you have to grapple with the unknown, because it's chaotic for someone going into the forest from a city. So I think that there's some of the motifs happen also in the Greek, in the various other traditions, because the forest is something wild. Dionysus is connected to the forest too. He's connected to the vine, the frenzy, animals, Pan. There's something unique about that world.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like, as you pointed out, there. So what I wanted when I opened up, I was looking at like a very specific tradition that I looked at, and it's competing with Christianity almost, of this divine child. Theocracia is the word that Gerald Fossum uses, of taking different traditions like Osiris, Dionysus, Horus, Epaphus, and then kind of putting together different versions that kind of emulate or they sort of like. You can see like Diodorus has a version that he tells with the Curetes, but the other one's the Titans, and this one it's this one it's that. And so when I look at the gospel and look at the story of Herod and I look at the story of Jesus, what I'm thinking what it looks like I'm reading is that the authors are aware of this tradition, and they're aware of all these multiple versions of the story being told, and they're all unique in their own way, but they all have these very ubiquitous elements. And so what I'm seeing in the gospels is the author trying to compete with this tradition in a way to make Jesus look like he trumps them. So you still have Herod, you still have the raging Hera, it's Herod. You still have, the star in the sky, you still have the virgin birth, and you all have all that stuff, but they're telling you the story in a way they're trying to make it the real one. This has really happened.
Yeah, I mean, but every tradition does that, right? At some level, you're trying to say my truth is better than your truth. It has way more. Your truth might be there, but my truth is going to have the overarching. This is the case. I mean, any religion does it, because you have to appeal to everyone at some level, right? I mean, Christians will take the perspective a lot of times, like, these other they're all demons, right? They'll still bring into the fold these other gods are demons, as opposed to saying, maybe some of them say they don't exist at all. But I think it's interesting dichotomy on this, and I don't think people take the Bible the way they should be taking the Bible in relationship to other texts, right? There's nothing. I don't find it that unique or different than any other ancient text that I engage with. It seems similar. You tell stories about a dude, does magic, has cosmic impact, and then it has salvific nature to himself.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Want to do a couple super chats and get some questions going?
Yeah, let's do it.
Unless you have anything else you wanted to present.
No, I got nothing to present. I mean, I just think this stuff is so fascinating, because I think the divine child motif is like so ubiquitous everywhere, in every culture, every tradition. Because how else do you show the connection between the end of life, where salvation happens at the beginning of life. There's something about a child that even now as human beings, we see a child and something melts in us, right? Why do you think there's stories of like, in the Gnostic Gospels with a baby Jesus running around and doing all these like cool little things that Jesus does? And then you have stories like Krishna doing those things. And I think there's even of other traditions, Romulus and Remus as children. There's something deeply connected to human beings and, like babies and infancy and childhood.
Yeah. Another thing too that I forgot to mention is when in the stories of Epaphus, Apollodorus, for example, gives this elaborate genealogy that connects Epaphus to Dionysus. So in the same way that Matthew and Luke are giving these elaborate genealogies about the divine child, trying to prove the authenticity that this is the one, the same way that Matthew and Luke are doing this. Oh, look, he goes all the way back to David. He goes all the way back to Adam. He goes all the way back to Abraham.
Yeah.
He goes back to this king. Oh, Zerubbabel is in the all that stuff. Well, it's funny enough when you check Apollodorus's account, you get Cadmus, Dionysus, a few other important gods too are in the genealogy of Epaphus.
Yeah, I mean, again, like this is the same shit we do, right? Like, someone's like, yeah, my great grandfather or great grandfather was part of the Revolutionary War, was friends with George Washington or some crap, right? It's the way, yeah, exactly.
Caesar,
it's the way we build legitimacy.
Yeah,
right.
Alexander the Great was connected to Heracles. He's from the Heraclidae, the ruling class of Troy at a point.
Right, because that old world, and even today, is part of your greatness is your birth. Meaning like you come from some sort of special lineage, right? But today in this day and age, things are a little different. Like we like talking about the underdog that didn't come from anything, that actually built themselves up from nothing, right? That's interesting to us, but in the ancient world, that wasn't that interesting. Like how many stories do we have of people that are unconnected to anything? But what happens is eventually that person that's unconnected is connected through somehow later myth making to some sort of lineage. Oh no, you didn't know that this guy was this person. You didn't know this guy was that cool or came from that background.
Yeah, like this one right here. You have right here Heracles, and then Hulos, Cleodios, and then it goes all the way down to, and then all of a sudden you start getting people who think might be historical because you have dates now.
Right.
So all of a sudden you have date. This might be like your kings of the Israel age, same time period too, right? And then all of a sudden you get into, okay, now we know these people existed. We have coins with their faces on them. They actually ruled cities. You got Perdiccas, you got Philip, you know what I mean? And then all of a sudden, boom, Alexander the Great right here.
Right.
So you haven't actually, I have to ask a Christian and a Jew, do you believe in this? Do you think this is, you have your genealogies, literally someone wrote it down. Do you think it's true because someone wrote it down? I mean, like, why don't you accept this right here? And maybe they do. I actually think the early Christians, especially like
Justin Martyr,
Justin Martyr, exactly. They would absolutely believe this, but they would say that was a daimon. They say that daimons ruled the earth. They call them giants, right? The daimons were here, and they would say, of course, Hercules was we're trying to get rid of the Gnostics called them archons, the archons of the world, the rulers of the world. They were literally daimonic beings. That's what they thought.
It's interesting because, like, at some level, like, no matter if you're religious or not, we have this desire to be like royal or like divine connection, right? Like, and I think that never went away. Like even with Jesus, like maybe he was just a dude with, Joseph was his dad, but later on over time, people like, no, he did something cool. He wasn't just a dude. He was the son of a god. He was son of the god, right? Like we do that even today. And like even when we look at comic books, eventually you'd be like, oh yeah, the Hulk is connected to Captain America because of the super soldier formula or whatever it's myth making in that.
Yeah.
And by the way, you do that again. Buddha is like in Indian history, even the kings in like 1,000 years ago would be like, I'm descendant from Rama through his son, and they would try to connect genealogies in like 1000 CE, in 1400 CE, like entire communities. Like there's a community called Yadavs in India and that community claims to be descended from Krishna. So they'll all make like genealogical claims of how that happened. Now, are they? Probably absolutely not. But like, so what? I mean, no one cares.
Yeah. I want to. Yeah, go ahead.
And just sorry. So just on this point, it's also interesting because within Indian society, that's also what gave, like, say you came from your family came from a lower strata of society, and you ended up becoming like royalty at some point because you made enough wealth, or you built enough kingdom, or
some people, sort of army, some sort of military deed, usually. Yeah.
And you take over entire land. You still have to prove your legitimacy. And what you end up doing is you hire a bunch of priests, and those priests will be like, actually, you're descended from this lineage here, and in order to go back to that lineage, we're going to do this particular rite that gives you back your family line or something like that, which is very interesting because I think people did that throughout history to get that legitimacy, right?
Yeah, and they would probably the way they would do it would be like, oh, you came from that particular region. Well, that's where the god blah 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 was. So you're probably from that god,
Right.
And you just kind of lost. You just kind of fell out of favor for a little while. That's why we weren't really paying attention to you. But now you're here, so yeah.
I mean, doesn't the royal family in the UK do that? Don't they claim to have that ancient lineage?
They go back to, I think someone even told me that they have Muhammad in their line somewhere. I'm gonna look that up actually. Here, you could read this super chat while I'm looking it up.
What's he saying here? Neil is hiding that we're both born of virgins. All right, I think that's a myth vision there. That's Derek.
That's fun. Oh, Derek, how long has he been a member for?
No, how long has Derek been a member?
46 months. That's what it says.
That's
right Damn,
less
Derek.
than 4 years. Just 2 months less.
That, Derek. Yeah, and thank you for everyone who's a member also. All the members that are helping me. You guys keep the channel alive by just being a member. Just simply being a member helps me continue to do this. As you notice, I've been doing more lives than I usually do, and I'm going to continue to do that. Eventually, I want to start doing every day. Have some sort of fixed schedule where I can come out at least for an hour or two every day.
You should.
I think it's, and just do some even like what I'm doing now. And I consider this like research. Like I'm just kind of just pulling stuff up, looking at websites, looking at screenshots that I took throughout the day. Like the first one I showed of the epithet Mary, I'm just screenshotting literally Google. Like that's nothing. But I think it's a good way for me to actually have something to talk about. I'm always trying to find a peer-reviewed article. It doesn't always have to be like super rigid. I can just look at things online and just talk about it, and then we can look at even Wikipedia stuff. Like, who cares, right? I mean, I always tell people to caution with that stuff. Don't take it at face value, but it's good to flip through these things so we can have something to talk about. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think you should do more of these, and maybe have a few of your audience come on live stream and ask questions and talk and whatever. That'd be cool.
Yeah. One second. Royal family related to Muhammad.
I mean,
this is from history.com.
A lot of the Shias claim their I don't know, their muftis or their imams. Their imams are descended from Muhammad.
Yeah, this is probably nonsense, but it says European kings and queens may come to mind the Prophet Muhammad. Not unless you open up a British tabloid these days. It's publications of the Daily Mail. Yeah, so this is a bunch of nonsensical rumors about it. But the point is like, yes, people do make genealogies. They try to, for political reasons, they want people to think that they come from some sort of lineage.
Right.
Anyways, thank you for that. As Azupiro, thank you for the $2. CX for the doc from Saffron Sohar, Forethought. All right, I'll check that out. Thank you for the super chat. At 160 Grande, thank you for the 10. Isis, Wisdom Osiris, Truth Set, Myth Horus, Ruler Truth, put in box, concealed, scattered. What is this, some sort of riddle? Wisdom put truth back together. Truth, Wisdom, Birth King. Prequel to the older Horus Hathor's divine child.
Oh, I think they're talking about the Isis represents wisdom, Osiris represents truth, Seth is myth, Horus is the ruler, and
Oh, you're sort of putting together like what these things represent.
Yeah, and then the story is like the scattering of the truth and the bringing it back together. And
that's very interesting. I
yeah,
never thought about it like that. I like that. That's a very interesting way to look at it. Thank you for that super chat. The infamous one. Thank you for the $2. Jesus as God means he impregnated his own mother. That is a kind of a Trinitarian worldview if you think about it.
well, I mean, is it? I mean, because like Jesus, I mean, he's a different person, right?
Yeah. Well,
in God.
that's the thing about that. The earliest Christianities, when let's go with the consensus, which is that Paul's 7 epistles are before.
Should I be Jay Dyer and pretend everything's presuppositions? Precept here.
well, let's like so the consensus right now, and there's some scholars pushing back against this now, like Nina Livesey saying everything's after 70 AD. There's nothing in Christianity at all until after the temple falls. That I'm starting to makes more sense to me right now. Just saying. I'm not saying that's consensus. It just makes more sense. Christianity doesn't make sense before 70 AD. It makes sense after. Whatever. Let's go with the consensus though. That Paul's epistles, the 7 authentic epistles, are before the Gospels, and they're before 70. They're 40, 50, 60 AD.
Sure.
Well, and if you just take Paul's epistles, he says he's from the line of David, and he doesn't say anything about a virgin birth, and Jesus is a human, right? And you have the earliest Gnostic theology from Basilides, Corinthus, and Harpocrates was that Jesus was born not of a virgin, was born of a man through David and Joseph, or through Joseph and Mary. But then when he got baptized, he was begotten. Right. He was adopted by God. The Holy Spirit descended on him, and he became.
Isn't that what the book of Mark says? The Gospel of Mark is.
That is kind of yes. Let's go.
Because Gospel of Mark doesn't have the virgin birth, does it? I thought that was
no, it doesn't. That's Matthew. No. You're right. It's introduced afterwards, and that's a good point. So check this out. It says, "My son." Here it is. Okay, I'm glad you brought this up. So Mark's the first gospel. So keep in mind, before Mark, all you have is some epistles, nothing else. No virgin birth, no Trinity, no nothing. And it starts off with here's the beginning of the news of the Messiah, the Son of God. And by the way, Son of God. There's so many sons of gods in this time that are mortals. That's nothing.
Right.
Julius Caesar is the son, or Augustus is the son of God. Alexander is the son of God. That means nothing. So when people say, but it says he's the son of God, so that means he is. No, that doesn't mean anything. Son of God does not mean you are God. It means you're the son of God. It's nothing. It's common. People say that all the time. Okay. Anyways, Son of God is a written Isaiah prophet. I'll send my messenger ahead of you who will prepare the way. So this messenger is John the Baptist, right? And then I will baptize you with water, but he will baptize you with the Holy Spirit. This is big, right? The Holy Spirit is, if you look at Philo is the Jewish philosopher of this time period who wrote in Greek. So if this is a text from a Jewish community who writes in Greek, you better bet your bottom dollar they know Philo, right? Philo believed that there was 2 gods. It was the one who's Yahweh or whatever you want to call him, is the perfect, the uncreated God from eternity. And then he sends forth this Logos or Holy Spirit figure who is active in the world. So God the Father is not active in the world. The Holy Spirit is active in the world.
Right.
There's 2 gods. So if you think about that theology, this makes sense. So the Holy Spirit, and then you have God. But then there's Jesus, a mortal, a normal human being from Nazareth in Galilee who gets baptized by John. And just as Jesus is coming out of the water, he saw heaven being torn up and the Spirit, the pneuma. Oh, by the way, Philo uses this word, pneuma, to describe the second God. So this is perfectly lining up. And this is Platonism as well, the world soul, the pneuma. And the pneuma descended on him like a dove, and then you hear a voice come from heaven and saying, Sue o huos mu agapetos. You are my son who I love. and I am well pleased. Eudokesa. This is where you get the queen's name, Eudocia, later on, the Byzantine queen, being well pleased. That's the name, well pleased. And so why am I reading this to you? If you read this without any knowledge of the Gospels that come after this, you have no knowledge of the Nicene Creed. You're not all bogged down by your theology. You have no idea what's going to happen later, and you just heard this for the first time. You think Jesus, a mortal human being born from Mary, is being adopted by God right now as he's being baptized. You are my son, whom I love. With you I am well pleased. He's being begotten by God. So the Spirit sent him out into the wilderness. Then this is the beginning of the ministry of Jesus. Nothing before this. There's no miracles before this. He becomes the Son of God right here. So
right, and this is also interesting because this is the part we talked about earlier. The Spirit sends him out to the wilderness. Why does he go out to the wilderness? It's something chaotic. What's in the wilderness? The temptation and fear and that's where he's coming into his own as God. In that sense.
John does a good retelling of Mark, but also Genesis, where in the beginning you have the Word with God. So there's only two. It's a dyad. It doesn't say there's three in the beginning. It just says in the beginning was the Word. Now, it does say this, though. In him, talking about the Logos, was Zoe. Right. That is a triad. So there is a triad, but it's not. Notice how it's not Jesus yet. It's the Logos, who's the pneuma. And then, so when you get down here, you get Jesus comes into the world. The Word, the Logos became flesh and made his dwelling among us. So you have another. So the Basilidians, Corinthus, Carpocrates. These are, I'm talking like 50 AD to 120 AD. That's these Christians that I'm naming. They get called Gnostic, but they're all followers of Paul. They all cite Paul in their text, in their fragments, and they believe that Jesus was begotten by God. It was adoptionism. It's huge heresy now, but I think it's the oldest form of Christianity, in my opinion. So, but yeah, so the divine. It relates to the divine child because he's the chosen one to become the Son of God. So it's kind of like it's the divine child story that you get in Matthew and Luke get brought into the fold later. The original Jesus story had nothing to do with the divine child story, no virgin birth. They adopt this story to sort of compete with the Ion cult or whatever. So,
I mean, do we have a sense from any of the earlier texts, like the Pauline texts,
of a virgin birth?
Or something divine about his birth, or no?
Nothing. Zero. Nothing about his birth, nothing about his childhood, only the resurrection and the crucifixion. That's all you get in Paul. That's it.
Interesting. Okay.
The only story about his life that you get is in Corinthians, where he's the night he was handed over, and he's doing a Eucharist with Peter and James and Paul. Not Paul. Peter and James and whoever else. I think that's just what he mentions, Peter and James. And then he says that he was handed over. Like that's all you get. The night he was handed over. Let me see if I can find that verse. Night, Corinthians.
That's very interesting, though. If that's the case, there's no mention of his divine birth until you get to Matthew.
Yeah, here it is right here. So, yeah, there's nothing. And by the way, want to know something else that's weird about Matthew? Mark never mentions Joseph.
Oh, really?
So there is no Davidic line either. Oh no, I'm sorry. Paul says he's from the line of David, so that's wrong.
But I thought
Joseph is not mentioned though.
But I thought he was through Mary, line of David.
No, it's Joseph. Mary. There's no genealogy for Mary at all. They're both genealogies that are both different. So there's a contradiction. They both go through. He's the son of father of son of father of son of father of. It's all male. So there's no Mary, and then so Joseph's in that line. But the funny part is Mark doesn't mention Joseph. Paul never mentions Joseph. So the first time Joseph is mentioned is in Matthew's gospel, which is written in like 85 AD. No one mentions Joseph for the whole first 60 years of 50 years of Christianity. Isn't that weird? So that makes you think that the whole divinic thing might be a little bit of a made up thing. But here, this is what he says in Corinthians. But then again, I should say, Paul does say he's from the line of He's born from the seed of David. But there's many ways you can interpret that. You could say all Israelites are born from the seed of David. That could just be a phrase. Who knows what he means by that?
Yeah.
Anyways, Corinthians says, I received from the Lord what I also pass on to you. Jesus, on the night he was betrayed and took bread, and when he had given thanks, he broke it and said, this is my body, which is for you. This is a remembrance of me. In the same way, after the supper, took the cup, saying, this is the cup of the new covenant in my blood. Do this whenever you drink it in remembrance of me. Whenever you eat this bread and drink from the cup, you proclaim the Lord's. This is the only little historical story that Paul tells us about the life of Jesus. In all of his letters, he's constantly talking about how to run the church, kind of giving his own philosophy, giving his worldview, worrying about things in the here and now. And he talks about Christ crucified and the resurrection, and he's kind of looking ahead at things. This is the only time, and it might be a few rare little sentences here and there, but this is the only major little story he tells us about Jesus. So before the Gospels, the only thing Jesus did a Eucharist, got handed over to the officials, betrayed and crucified, and then resurrected. 500 people saw it. That's what Paul says. So that's all you get before the Gospels. So, anyways, thank you for that super chat. Anti-contrarian, thank you for the super chat. Vedic religion strictly an Aryan import or a synthesis of Aryans and IVC? How do we explain the Pashupati seal if yogic practices were imported later? Interesting.
Yeah, so as far as we can tell, the Vedic religion or the Vedic tradition is found, it's pretty much like whatever you think of modern Hinduism, it's all stems from the Vedic tradition. Like, even if there was a merger of, let's say, non-Vedic into the Vedic, they've basically blended it up to the point where it's all Vedic. Like, you'll find the Indo-European motifs that whatever story it is, it's now been changed to the Indo-European motifs that we find. And part of that is like, because of, we don't know how this happened, if it was either mass genetic change or elite dominance that led to the Vedic Aryans taking over this region and whatever. But it's very clear that for at least a few hundred years before the Vedic texts were composed, they were in that region, if not 1,000 years. And so I don't know. And frankly, no scholar would say they have anything to give. All we can look at is look at the Vedic texts and then compare it to other Indo-European texts and be like, okay, what do we find that might be what we could call purely Indo-European? And then what might be tangentially Indo-European and what might not be not Indo-European? Like, for example, we do know that in the Vedas, they do have certain words that aren't necessarily Indo-European. And there's certain sounds that some scholars argue, like for example, the retroflex is not found in a lot of different other Indo-European sounds. Like the difference between the ra and the ra, like that isn't found in a lot of other Indo-Europeans. There could be a couple of reasons for that, although the Baltics have it, which is actually interesting too. So so there might be, this element might be preserved well in the Vedic tradition, not preserved in other traditions. So it gets complex. And so I guess to your answer is like, the Vedic religion is purely Indo-European, as far as we can tell from the evidence. Maybe later Hindu thought does incorporate other non-Vedic elements into it.
Oh yeah, that's how when we look at Europe, you could see the Indo-European sort of skeleton making its way, and then it gets like the meat on the bones are like the local traditions that get subsumed into it. So you see like Germanic and Celtic and Italian and Greece, and you can see all their vast differences because of their local traditions. But then you can see the similarities having to do with Indo-European religion. I think that's I think Hinduism has a similar layout.
Yeah, it does. We just don't know how deeply, because even when new traditions come into play, they're deeply controlled, or they get reformed within the basically Indo-Aryan worldview. So I think even like some people would say like Durga is not Vedic, but I think she is. I think you find that in the Vak Suktam of the Rig Veda, like for example, some people will say the Pashupati or Shiva is not Vedic. I don't think that's true at all. I think he is absolutely Vedic. He's known as Rudra, and you find his qualities. There's the Rudram, which is an entire chant that happens that explains this. I mean, it has a lot of these qualities too. So I think you can find traditions deeply rolling back up to the Vedic.
Yeah, that's a good question though. It'd be interesting. I wonder how many scholars have tried to like parse out the local traditions versus well,
a lot do. Like for example, they will take the argument that a lot of the Puranas and even the tantric texts are probably much more local that became incorporated. Like for example, like we know there's this god named Skanda. If you've heard of Skanda, he is the god of war in Hindu thought, and he's connected to Shiva. But in the South India, there's this deity called Murugan. Those two deities have merged, become the same deity. So where in the North, he's a bachelor, he's not married, he is god of war, he's that. The South, he's got 2 wives, and there's a little difference there. So there is that happening, merging of local smaller deities into larger deities. Like in East India, you find like a lot of the snake culture gets subsumed under like Shesha, which I've mentioned earlier, or the Nagas or things like that. So you find that subsuming happen where they map on the Vedic to their tradition, and then it becomes a new thing.
Mm-hmm. Well, that was a great super chat. Appreciate that. Let's go to the next one. Scobie 1. I was also born of a virgin birth. Nice. I believe that. I think that is all hail Scobie 1. Thank you for the super chat. I appreciate the $2, man. Good seeing you. Julian Valdez drops a nice 20 spot. Thank you so much for that. Appreciate that. I really enjoyed the stream, Neil and Mukunda. It's Mukunda, right?
Mukunda, yeah.
Is it possible that the reoccurring theme of the divine child in the different ages, yugas, is to reorient mankind to their godhood, theosis, by reestablishing dharma? Wow.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's an interesting point because in each age and each time period, right, there's the idea would be that there's some sort of divine engagement with humanity. And usually in that engagement that requires that the birth be somewhat non-typical. One sec. Hey, Rome's, come here. All right. Yeah, so it'd be somehow divine and not entirely human. Although there is interesting in the Vedic tradition, there's also this concept of what's known as Amesha or Avesha Avatara, which basically means that the divine infuses their energy into you for a particular purpose. So, for example, certain deities, like there's this deity called Parashurama, means Rama with an axe, and he is considered to have been infused with the power of Vishnu for the purposes of killing a bunch of warriors. And then once his purpose is done, that energy leaves him. He's no longer divine in the same way.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's sort of the Neoplatonist viewpoint, is that the one creates the world in the cosmos, and like we are emanations of the one. So our goal, or even if we don't even think of it as a goal, it's more of like it's just like our intuition is to give back to the one. We're like gravitating. Yeah. We have the gravitas, the Latins call it, to move to be fulfilled by virtue, and it sort of drags us upward to the one, and it's called theosis. It literally is called theosis, and that's what the Christians adopt this in their Orthodox Christianity has the doctrine of theosis, going back to God, of taking part in God's purpose.
Right.
I think it's a noble theology to have some sort of doctrine in that sense. I like that. I think it's worth attaining that type of thing. So, thank you for the super chat. I really appreciate the $20, by the way. Thank you. Smill still, thank you for the $10. Appreciate that very much. I think Mark ended without resurrection appearance because he couldn't decide on spirit or physical, both being debated at the time. Also, no birth narrative because it didn't matter yet. Still adoption. Absolutely. 100% agree with everything this person said. Mark has this more of adoptionist. He gets baptized. That's the beginning of the story. Mark 1, baptism. Like you don't have to wait 4 chapters for the baptism. There's no, like you have in some of the early Christian sources in the 2nd and 3rd century, you have the infancy gospel where Jesus is doing miracles as a child. That doesn't happen in Mark. It's not until he's 30 years old that he starts doing miracles because he just got baptized. The Holy Spirit descends on him. As far as the resurrection goes, I couldn't agree more. In the earliest version of Mark, when we look at the earliest manuscripts from the second, or I know there's no second Marks, 3rd and 4th centuries, there's no the resurrection. He just dies, and then the angel says he resurrected. But he doesn't actually, there's no physical resurrection because, as Espinel points out, the author didn't know what to do with the body. Is he going to come back in a physical form, or is he going to come back in a bodily form, or some sort of phantom form? And I think the debates were hot at that time. The Docetists and the physicalists. So I think you're absolutely right. Good point. Thank you for the super chat. Any thoughts on that?
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, I would. It's interesting because I think did they really have a difference in that? Again, I don't know, between the physical and spirit back then in terms of the appearance. Would that have mattered?
There was a huge debate by the Docetists. The Docetists thought that Jesus could not have actually had a physical body, because that would violate everything that it's like the laws of Platonism that gods are perfect and can't have bodies. It means dokein, to seem, which means he seemed to have a body, but really he's a phantom. And it was the doctrine, that phenomenon of Jesus, his historical body existence, and above all, human form of Jesus was a mere semblance without any true reality.
Interesting. So I'll put this it's because similarly in the Hindu tradition, what they'll say is like, so the world, the material world, is made up of basically 3, let's say, qualities: sattva, rajo, and tamo, which means like sattva means like light or like peace, equanimity. Rajas means activity, a passion, and tamo is like darkness, entropy. And all things are made of that. So the physical body, mean all physical things, and even the mind and intellect. So when like Vishnu takes avatar, what a lot of the people would say, well, did he take a human body, or did he take a prakritic body, or did he not have that? And their response usually is that he has a body of his own nature called Suddha Tattva, or pure truth. And it takes on, it manifests in this world. It's not apparent, it's not unreal, but it's more than real. So in a sense, it's like, it's the basis of reality for even physical things, but it's beyond that. So it's not caught up in it. So it's almost like Docetism in the sense, like, it appears to be human, but it's something more than that.
Yeah, I think that goes back to some ancient like idea of what gods were like. I think that's what it sounds like.
Yeah. I mean, even the term, like for the gods in Hinduism, you call them the suras, which means the shining ones, or devas, also means shining. From the word div, which you also get dios, deus, those are all connected, meaning the shining light.
We get the word divide from it. And
divide.
It's divine. The dividing of matter and spirit. It has to do with dividing. Like it literally, it's the word has to do with the exact topic we're talking about. That's what's so crazy about the word divinity. Etymology. Let me see if I can find a wiki.
It's probably connected in Deus.
Yeah, it is. It's absolutely. Look at this here. Ready? Oh, this is a cool one. Wiki's been out. Wiki's good with etymologies, man. Wiki has some great pages.
Yeah, try it with the AI stuff. It's actually pretty good there too.
Yeah. Look at this. Divinity, uncountable, a stated position of being a god. Deity, obviously. And then synonyms. I thought there was one about division in here, but anyways, divine. Maybe that's the one I'm looking for. Divine, superlative, divine, eternal, godlike, beautiful. Where's the Yeah, you get the point. Anyways.
Yeah.
But I wanted to show you something on this page real quick where it says, the Docetism is defined as the teaching that Jesus' body was either absent or illusory. The term docetic is rather nebulous. In one version, Marcionism, Christ was so divine that he could not have been human, since God lacks material body, which therefore could not physically suffer. Jesus only appeared to be a flesh and blood man, and his body was phantasm. Now, and it says right here, Christ was a separate entity who entered Jesus' body in the form of a dove as his baptism.
Right, in Mark. Yeah.
So he empowers him to perform miracles, abandons him on the cross.
So
Isn't that interesting?
If that's the case, then what happens to Jesus?
That's Bart Ehrman, by the way.
Oh, yeah. But like if he's abandoned on the cross, then what happens to Jesus? Is he die?
The human dies. He's the one that, so that's interesting. In that sense, he does die first. Like the human Jesus literally gets killed, and then the God Jesus goes back up. Isn't that interesting?
Okay. All right.
But yeah, so okay, the last thing I wanted to look at in this page is Gospel of John is naive docetism. The ensuing debate reached the impasse like docetism, like Gnosticism, was difficult to explain, blah, blah, blah. Here, this is the one I wanted to read. Clement of Alexandria, in his Myriobiblia, held that Photius, the bishop, was talking about Clement, views that Clement's views reflected a quasi-docetic view of the nature of Christ, writing that Clement hallucinates that the word, or logos, or remember we said pneuma, was not incarnate, but only seems to be. So here's the ala doxai. It literally uses the word doxai, That
would be so interesting because, like, imagine if that ends up being the true, like,
this is
position.
The oldest. I'm 100% convinced that this is the oldest version of Christianity. They move out of this. They think this doesn't make sense later on. The Nicene Creed fixes all this nonsense.
Yeah.
But if you go back, if you were living in the 110 AD, you would think this is true about Christianity. This would be the orthodox position in my opinion. This is what everyone thought. Even that's why Clement was one of the great church fathers. He believed this. In Clement's time, some disputes contended over whether Christ had physic flesh, mankind, as heirs to Adam, or spiritual flesh of the resurrection. I think Philo would have weighed in on this, and Philo would have said it was both. Philo would have said there was two Adams. He even says this in one of his books. There's two Adams, a spiritual Adam and a fleshly Adam, and that Jesus was the successor of both of these lines, he would have said.
So then do we as human beings in this context have both spiritual me and physical me?
I think the way that Philo would say is yes. But like you have to attain your spiritual self, which is perfect.
Okay.
Through virtue, through self, like whether you die or whatever. There's like we have to get back to that. Like Philo's a Platonist. So yeah, we all have our perfect form, which is the spiritual self of us. It's perfect, 100% spiritual. It's literally in the realm of forms. That's how they viewed it. So this is where these problems arise from. They're trying to square away Judaism, Messianic Judaism, with Platonism, and you end up with all these problems of spirit and flesh and all this nonsense. That's why the Nicene Creed just goes, all right, Jesus is God and man, end of story.
You know what this strikes me as so weird is like when you think about the historic elements of this, it's like the Judaic worldview is so different from the Greco-Roman worldview that if you're trying to say that the metaphysical world is based on the Greco-Roman, but you're in a Judeo religion, I feel like there's like a disconnect going on here, that you're form-fitting the world of ideas and forms of Plato into a Jewish world where it doesn't seem to fit well.
Well, that's because they're actually coming out of the Jewish world and they're trying to fit into the Greco-Roman world. So it's actually the other way around. They're coming out of the Jewish world and they're saying, we want to be a part of the greater, broader Greco-Roman world. So they're trying to fit in and stay up to date with the philosophy of the day. Philo is the best example to read out of this. He figures it out.
But from an internal critique, you got to be like, aren't these two different worlds that have different views? Like, doesn't the Old Testament's understanding of the self and heaven or the forms or whatever so different than if the God of the Old Testament is the God of everything, then how is what's being said in the church connected or true on this part?
Yeah, and it also depends on what Old Testament we're talking about. Some of the Old Testament, looks to be Hellenistic. I think even Genesis is Hellenistic. Then you have other parts that isn't, like the Kings and Chronicles and some of the stories, like some of the prophets maybe look to be Persian period, or maybe even some of them
after the captivity. Yeah. Okay, fair enough. Fair enough.
So that's kind of how you. Yeah, it's very complicated. But yeah, I ended up finding out through, as you suggested, asking ChatGPT, and it says, I'll just share my screen if I can. It says linguistic that's not it. The daimon does not originally mean demon in modern sense. It describes action of division. The root Proto-Indo-European da, to divide.
Yeah.
The Greek daimon, Proto-Indo-European dai, literally means to divide, to cut, to apportion. Daimon, the divider, that cuts a piece of divine reality and assigns it to a specific person. That is pretty wild right there.
Yeah.
That is pretty
That's
wild.
pretty cool.
But anyways, thank you for the super chat. Let's go on to the next one. Let's see. We have the infamous one. Thank you for the $5. Have you guys heard any mimetic parallels to the ritual in Numbers 23? Things like the 7 hills of Revelation. Let's go to Numbers 23. Let's go to it right now. Numbers 23. So you have, Balaam. Okay. Let's see here. Balaam said, build me 7 altars here. Prepare 7 bulls and 7 rams. Balak did this as Balaam said, and two offered a bull and a ram to each altar. Then Balaam said to Balak, stay here beside your offering while I go aside. Perhaps the Lord will come to meet me. Whatever he reveals to me, I will tell you. Then he went off to a barren height. God met with him, and Balaam said, I have prepared 7 altars. On each altar I have offered a bull and a ram. The Lord, or Yahweh in the Hebrew, would say, put a word in Balaam's mouth and said, go back to Balak and give him his word. So he went back to him and found him standing beside his offering with all the Moabite officials. Then Balaam spoke his message. Balak brought me from Aram, the king of Moab from the eastern mountains. Come, he said, curse Jacob for me. Come, denounce Israel. How can I curse those who God has not cursed? How can I denounce those who the Lord has not denounced? From the rocky peaks I see them. From the heights I view them. I see a people who live apart and do not consider themselves one of nations. Who can count the dust of Jacob or number the earth forth of Israel? Let me die the death of the righteous, and may my final end be like theirs. Balak said to Balaam, what have you done to me? I brought you to curse my enemies, but you have done nothing but bless them. He answered, must not I not speak what the Lord puts in my mouth? So, okay, that's kind of what he's talking about. He's talking about the ritual, the 7 thing. The question is,
it's connected to
any mimetic parallels to the rituals in Numbers 23, like the 7 hills of Revelation? I think that's just the number 7 being kind of ubiquitous. 7 hills in Rome is the 7 hills in Revelation.
Yeah.
So there just happens to be 7 hills in Rome. Literally, that's true. So they make the 7 beasts, the beast of 7. But what's interesting about what you just pointed out here, in Pythagorean mysticism, the number 7 was always the magic number. 7, 7, 7. So a lot of people think, because the old Pythagorean school predates Platonism, and I've heard like people like Gamerkin point out that parts like this of the Bible look like to be maybe possibly inspired by Pythagorean mysticism. There's also a passage in Herodotus about Arabs in the desert who would cut their hands and sprinkle it 7 times on an altar to make pacts with different nations. So there might be something going on with the number 7 in magic rituals that's ubiquitous in Pythagoreanism and maybe just Near Eastern cults too. But
yeah, I mean, there's a lot of there's been a lot of scholarly discussion about how much Pythagoras was influenced by Indian thought, particularly, right? Because there seems to be a lot of parallels with probably more likely Jain and Hindu thought than Buddhist, because he's very much concerned about like reincarnation, vegetarianism. These are like very, very deeply connected to, take care of animals. These are like connected to Jain and Hindu thought. And then there's the numbers that, pretty ancient India was pretty mathematical. The texts are pretty deeply mathematic based. So like, and part of that might have been influenced by, frankly, the Sumerians. There was a lot of interaction between the Sumerians and the Vedic people for a while. So there might be back and forth. So yeah, I do think there's something to like his concept of monad and the concept of bindu and or the concept of the one is similar. So I think there's a lot. So yeah, I just bringing up some nonsense.
Yeah, no. Look at this one. This is from Leviticus 14. It says, "The priest shall order that the birds be killed in a clay pot. He's to dip the blood and look at this. Take the live bird and dip it together with cedar wood and scarlet and the hyssop into the blood of the bird that was killed over the fresh water. 7 times he shall sprinkle the one to be cleansed of the defiling disease, and then pronounce them clean. After that, he's released to the bird in the open fields." What? Some crazy Pythagorean magic going on, right?
Yeah.
And then it says, like, on the 8th day, they must bring out 2 lambs and an ewe and a year old, each without defect, along with 3/10 of an ephah of the finest flour with olive oil, a grain offering, and 1 log of oil. The priest pronounces them clean and shall present one to be cleansed and the offerings before the Lord at the entrance of the tent of the meeting. The priest is to take one of the male lambs and offer it as a guilt offering, along with the log of oil, and he shall wave them before the Lord as a wave offering. So, there's also a story about Pythagoras doing something 7 times. I forgot what it was. I'm trying to think of the source. What was it? There was like some story about Pythagoras saving fish. What was the story? I'm looking it up on.
I don't know. Actually, I've never heard of this.
Here it is, right here. A story of Pythagoras and the fisherman is one of the famous legends. Let's see. Pythagoras was walking from Sybaris to Croton. He came across fishermen who had just hauled a massive net of fish. Before the net was even opened, Pythagoras told them exactly how many fish were inside. He promised if he was correct, he would return every single fish to the sea alive. What was the number? I forgot what the number was.
7.
No, I don't think it was 7.
I'm
I
kidding.
think it was a multiple of 7, though. Let's see. What was the number? The number is not recorded. Oh, maybe not. Okay. I don't know why I'm thinking of this story then. I'm thinking of something else. Anyways, yeah. Anyway, thanks for that super chat. I don't know where I was going with that, but anyways, here's another one from S. Mill Still. No one seems to know where the importance of 7 comes from. Planets, yeah, that's part of it. The 4th of the month. How old is one? Yeah, I would say it's the planets because you have 7 total. You have 5 visible planets, right? You have Moon, Sun, Earth, Mercury, Venus.
So Earth wouldn't be included there because we're on Earth.
Jupiter,
right? Yeah.
Jupiter, yeah.
Yeah.
And then Saturn. So there's 7, yeah. So if you take away Earth and Sun, you have Moon, and let's talk about the night sky. 5 of them.
Yeah.
Moon, Mercury, Venus, Jupiter, and Saturn.
And Mars. We would see Mars.
Oh, you're right. So Mars. Wait. Why am I? How is that? Oh, that would be 7. Okay, so you're right. And Mars, and then you have Earth and Moon. That's 7. Yeah. Right. Does that make sense?
So I think so. 7 also is connected to the 7 rays of light. So in the Vedic world, the word is Saptarashmi or Saptashva, which means 7 horses. Horses represent light too, because the chariot of the sun has 7 horses pulling it, representing the light going through. And then also there's, at that time they figured out 7 notes. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, right? So those are 7 notes.
Yep, 7 notes.
Yeah.
And then they had the 8th one lit.
The silence. Yeah. And then there's also, like, within the Hindu traditions, also 7 rishis or the 7 sages, the 7 mind-born sages of Brahma. And then there's like 7 planes of existence. Like, when I do my rituals, there's, Bhu, Bhua, Suva, Maha, Jana, Tapaha, Satya, right? These are the 7 levels of or 7 lokas or dimensions, or what do you want to call it. So yeah, I mean, the 7 is very ubiquitous throughout ancient Vedic tradition, and frankly, it could be also Mesopotamian from the Sumerian traditions.
Yeah, so the planets that were visible in the ancient world was the Sun, the Moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn. So that's the 7. Now, Julian's hymn, he literally calls the god, this god of the 7 rays, Helios, and then he says throughout the 7 spheres, talking about the planets. So yeah, it is the 7 rays. Ray, I think it's in here somewhere. No, maybe not this one. The 7-rayed god was from Julian. Let me see if I can find that passage. What is that from? Here, let's there's actually a Wikipedia page about this for some reason. Let me see what this says. 7 rays. It's a concept that appeared in several religions and esoteric philosophies in Western culture in India since the 6th century BCE. This is what you were just talking about. In Occidental culture can be seen in early Western mysteries such as Gnosticism, Mithraism, the texts of iconic art in the Catholic Church and the Byzantine Empire. In India, the concept has been part of Hindu religious philosophy in the Vishnu Purana, as you just pointed out. But look at this. Ready? The Chaldean oracles. That's what I'm thinking of. The Chaldean oracles feature a 7 rays purifying agents of Helios. Symbolism featured in Mithraic liturgy as well. Later, 4th century, Emperor Julian Saturnalia composed a hymn to the solemn sun, and in the hymn to the mother of the gods speak of unspeakable mysteries hidden from a crowd such as Julian the Chaldean prophesied concerning the god of the 7 rays. Now, what's interesting about, and look, there's so much more on this. There's so much on this. What's interesting about this is you can actually find images of Sol Invictus. Watch this.
With 7 rays.
Yeah, most of the time, not all the time, but most of the time. Let me see if I can pull up my screen. When the way he's depicted is with 7 rays. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and there's probably 2 missing there. This one has more than that. You can see. Here's another one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. See, most of most of the time, he's depicted as Julian describes him, as the god of the 7 rays. I think this one right here has 7.
I think sometimes he also has 12.
6, 7. Yeah.
Right.
7 or 12.
Yeah.
But you can see 7 right there too. 7 there. 7 here. That's more than that. But Sol Invictus 7 rays. Let me just try to get more specific with it. Yeah, but anyways, I can if I really wanted to, I can put together, like, here's right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You know what I mean? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It has more of them. Okay. This one looks like it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that one's missing 7. Boom.
Yeah.
So as you can see, yeah, that's the 7-rayed god. So it's pretty unanimous. So thank you for that super chat. What's the next one? Here we go. The infamous one. Thank you for the $2. Daniel 7 describes this entity's body. Abraxas. Let's go to Daniel 7. Oh, you're talking about the 4. So Daniel's 4 beast is not. I mean, it's interesting to compare it to Abraxas. I would think that the Gnostics probably would do this too. But Daniel's original intent is to talk about these 4 kingdoms: the Assyrians, the Medes and the Persians, and the Greeks. And then some later accounts will switch it up and say the Romans. But the last kingdom is the Seleucid kingdom. So that's what he's describing here, the 4 beasts. So.
Okay.
But thank you for the super chat, though. You know about the 4 beasts, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, we're out of super chats for now, but I wanted to keep going just a little bit longer. I wanted to show people, to go back to what I was talking about earlier, the Isis Great Mother mythology, how I think it makes its way into Christianity. In late antiquity, when Christianity becomes a legal Roman religion, Mariology explodes. Early Christianity, no Mariology. She's not divine. She's not venerated. She's not divinity. She's not part of the Trinity. Nothing. All of a sudden, after the 3rd and 4th, and even more apparent, the 5th century, with the Cappadocian Fathers, Mariology becomes a huge deal, and we can see this in their hymns to Mary. And I might get dinged for this, but thank you guys for the super chats. And if you send me more super chats, then this video doesn't need to be monetized. I can keep it in the video. So if I get dinged for this, it's fine. I don't really care. I want people to see this. This is the hymn to the Virgin, and I feel like this is the divine child myth. And the epithets she gets in Greek are the exact. I'm not joking. They are the exact same epithets that Isis, Persephone, Demeter, the Great Mother, Magna Mater, are also getting. And I'll show you. I'm going to pause it to show you exactly what I mean. So here we go. We're going to play. Have anything you want to say before we start?
No, let's do it. Let's hear it.
Okay. Oh, and one more super chat real quick. Not Daniel's beast, the Ancient of Days, the one like the Son of Man. Oh, okay. Yeah, possibly. That could be some sort of proto-Abraxas figure. And you're right. The Ancient of Days is a time god. So actually, you might be right. Let me come back to this super chat after I'm done singing this, showing this song. I want to go back to what you said on this. This is really important. Thank you for the super chat, by the way. Can you hear this? Oh, it's my bad. So right off the bat, pausing it. So you have Agni or Agne in ancient Greek. But by the way, I'm reading a book about ancient Greek, and actually they said the Hellenistic Greeks were still keeping the Attic pronunciation intact. But by the time you get to Koine and even the Common Era, they start to say Agni. So the modern Greek, it starts sounding more like modern Greek, even before the Byzantine period. But anyways, Despoina means like the lady, or it says here immaculate, right? So that's pure virgin, immaculate, or pure virgin lady, right? So these are all titles. These are all every single word. All three of these words are all epithets that you get for Persephone, or Persephone is literally called Despoina. She's literally called Parthene, and she's literally called Agni. So if you just heard this as a first-time Greek person, you would go, "Oh, it's a hymn to Horus." But again, Kyrie Nymphi. So Kyrie is a huge term in pagan religions of rejoicing. It's literally the translation of the word hilaria in Latin. You constantly would hear at pagan festivals, you would constantly hear him saying, Kyrie, Kyrie, Kyrie. Nymphi, Nymphi is the nymphs, the brides, the bride of Christ, or the bride of God in this case, right? And anymphete, so unwedded, with bride unwedded. So this terminology of the nymphs, Dionysus and the nymphs, Christ and the nymphs, it's ubiquitous. You can see it. You can see both of them having this terminology. So there you go. The Virgin Mater, the Great Mother, is literally called Magna Mater. Magna Mater. Wanasa, the Queen. I use Wanasa. That's with the digamma, but it's Anasa here. Like this is literally the term for the Great Mother. The Great Mother, the Virgin. There's nothing, not a single word that has been said yet is unique to Christianity. This whole entire, I'm going to start it over to let you hear it better. Everything that's been said so far nothing has been unique to Christianity. All of this is applied either in the Orphic hymns or Homeric hymns to the various goddesses. A bit of Greek or no?
A little bit, yeah.
Does this pop out at you at all? My audience might be like, what? Because Hypsistos, Theos Hypsistos, the highest god, that's a form of Hypsistos, but it's Hippelotera, so the highest Uranos, or Uranon in the accusative. The accusative version of Uranos. So you have Hypsistos, Uranos. Once again, not a single word that's been said yet is at all. I wanted to look back at this fleece thing again real quick. So you have Panadrose Tepoke. I don't know. I'm not really familiar. That might be something that I'm just not. It's not clicking. Anyways, radiant of the solar imagery, because this is what was popular in paganism at the time when Christianity became. At the time when these hymns are being constructed, was the solar synchronism, right?
How
radiant and the rays. Huh?
How old is this hymn?
So this particular hymn has roots going back to 11th century, but then people will say that hymn has roots going back. It's an evolution. So, but
right.
It's mostly ancient. It's Byzantine. It's very ancient. So this particular hymn you can find in 11th century. But before that, it gets a little murky. But you know how these things are. They find there probably was an older version of this without the music being maybe the melody wasn't the same. Maybe it was just. But this probably goes back to the beginning of Mariology. You know what I mean?
Right.
The chorus. You got the chorus. You got the Virgin again, and then you have another form of the word Kyrie, Kara, delight of the virgin choruses. So it's very Maenadic. It's very Dionysian. It's got the nymphs. They got the choruses. You got the Virgin. You got Uranos. You got the highest. You got all this imagery that you would, if you heard this, notice how the word Mary hasn't even came up yet. If you were a pagan, if I brought this hymn back to ancient Athens in 400 BC and I played this song, they would go, "Oh shit, he's jamming out to the Kori, the mother of Dionysus." This is exactly what they would think. There'd be no idea. They'd have no idea this is Christian. They have no idea this is Christian. There's not a single thing said right now that even mentions Christianity or Jesus or Mary. Not one thing yet. Isn't that crazy? Now, okay, someone might say, there you go, you got angels. Well, actually, turns out messengers. So this would be, I wouldn't say Hellenistic, but in antiquity, in the common era, pagans start using the word messenger to describe daimons. They start saying, I can even show you if I have my book here. There's a book called Pagan Monotheism. Do I have it here or no? But actually, I think I do have. Yes. Here, let me play this right now. I'll be right back. Okay, so, all right. Now here, this obviously, seraphim is very Jewish. So that's something that would be, the pagan would go, huh? Seraphim? Are you talking about Serapis? What does that mean? They would be confused by that. So there is some indications that this is a Christian hymn. I'm not saying it's totally ripped from paganism, but I do want to share something real quick on the word angel. I told you I'd come back with the angel. So this is from the book Pagan Monotheism, produced by Cambridge University. And there's an inscription from, I forgot where, Lydia. Confession inscriptions of Lydia and Phrygia stereotypically end with the phrase Kai apo nun eulogoi. And from now on I praise. Finally, the heavenly dwelling of the God made messengers necessary for his communication with mortals. Mercat de Theou, Meris, Angeloi, Hemes. So the messengers of God, messengers of God, and it says right here, the messengers Angeloi, the inscriptions of Asia Minor refer to the gods who served as Angeloi of a superior god. And the citation 124, it's from Asia Minor. Orphic theology also knew of angels of a superior god, the polymorphoi angeloi, the many working angels. That's what the word means, many working polymorphoi. And then here's another one, line 6 from the Orphic hymn, Angelon Tonde. So you have, this is from the hymn to Janus. Janus, the Latin god, has angels that follow him. So, and then another inscription over here, exclamatory phrase, one God in heaven, eis theos uranoi, there's that word again, one God in heaven, let's see, is that it? And then here's another one where it says, all being served by the much laboring angels, polymukthoi angeloi. So just want people to know that the word angel does not necessarily mean Christianity. There are references to angels in paganism. So did I miss one of these? I really wanted to show. I think I might have missed it when I was looking for this. Let's see. Oh, not this one. Maybe it's still coming up. So let's play it again. Any thoughts on this?
No, I like it. It sounds. It's
a great hymn, isn't it? I enjoy it. I like stuff like this. Yera, means like sacred, but that's very ubiquitous, and a lot of the epithets that you would get for the goddesses: the sacred goddess, the sacred virgin, sacred Yera Parthenos. Yeah. There it is. Did you see it?
Zoe, yeah.
There it is, Zoe.
Yeah.
Zoe, life eternal. She is that Zoe. She is that life ion. There's ion right there.
Yeah.
The Ionian. This is why I love this hymn so much. Let's hear that again. Zoe ion, right? Zoes tes Ionius. It's right. Like you would, if you were hearing this in Antioch, Syria in the 2nd century, you would go, "Oh, does Ion have a companion named Zoe?" You would think like something like that. Yeah. Now, this is what blew my mind when I read this. So this word right here, xulon, tree of life. Yeah, Zoe, the tree of life. They're the names of the priests of Attis were called the xulo cutters, like the tree cutters. So they were it was a name, and then in Latin they're called dendrophori. Dendros is the word, but they were also called zulophori. So you might, I don't know, I'm just saying, like these words are popping out at me when I'm looking at the other traditions in comparison. Do you catch it?
Cori.
There it is right there. Cori.
Yeah.
Cori semne kai aspile. That word right there, pan, and it's got pan and earth together. Oh, Lady Panagia, the Lady of the Earth, like Lady of all of the Earth, basically.
All the Earth, yeah.
And that's what Cori is in pagan mythology. She's the queen of the earth. She's the underworld queen. She's the queen of all of the earth. You know what I mean? She's in charge of everything.
All these words are repurposed, right?
All of it's repurposed. She's the one who gives birth to life. Life comes from the underground in the ancients. You know what I mean? Literally calls her the sacred hallowed temple. Like Nanai, like these are terminologies that are very sacred, they're very common in pagan Greek literature. There it is again. Zoes tes Ionio.
Eternal life.
Zoe of ions. Zoe of ions. That's literally what it means in Greek. Zoe of the ions. So, yeah, I think you get my point there, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's just the Greek works, the Greek deities repurposed, brought into to play the Christian roles, right? At the end of the day.
Yeah. So this person said, not Daniel's beast, the Ancient of Days. Let's go back to that real quick. Daniel 7, Ancient of Days. Here it is. I was just getting to it, actually. Thrones were set in place, and the Ancient of Days took his seat. His clothing was white as snow. The hair of his head was white like wool. His throne was aflaming with fire, and its wheels were all ablaze. A river of fire was flowing, coming out before him. Thousands upon thousands attended him. 10,000 times 10,000 stood before him. The court was seated. The books were opened. So,
is this? I mean, don't they sometimes think the Ancient of Days connects to Metatron?
Yep, absolutely.
And so therefore Enoch.
Metatron, Enoch uses is drawing from this, and Enoch is basically making it turn into Metatron. And then later on, it's connected to Christ by the Christians. The Christians view this as Christ. The spirit of Christ. So,
but doesn't it say in my vision?
Right here, in my vision, there was one like the Son of Man. You know, the Christians take that as obviously Christ. Coming with the clouds of heaven, he approached. Oh no, the Ancient of Days would be the Father then. The Ancient of Days
would be the Father.
Yeah, the Father. And he was given authority. Actually, that's right. The Ancient of Days is actually depicted in Orthodoxy, and it became heretical later on because they're like, you can't depict the Father. Orthodox icon. So what happened was, in Orthodoxy, they were allowed to depict the Ancient of Days in a long time ago. And I think maybe they still could. I don't know, but it can't be the Father. That's what I'm saying. Like, for example, like this is the Ancient of Days, but they're not allowed. You can't actually depict the Father in Orthodoxy. So it has to be. It has to be the Daniel's Ancient of Days, and that's the only like closest thing you're going to get to a depiction of the Father in Orthodoxy is the Ancient of Days. Daniel,
right? Because I think I remember this is where Justin Sledge talks about the two powers in heaven issue that rises here.
Yep.
So
it's very much in line with Platonism, the two powers in heaven idea.
Yeah.
That's in Timaeus. There's two gods. So
very cool.
It is very cool. I'm trying to think of anything else that I wanted to discuss. You know, when this topic fascinates me with the the whole birth of the divine child from a virgin, and the way the virgin is described as being the one who's stung by the gadfly. She's this chosen virgin savior who gives birth to the divine child who becomes like the savior of the world.
Right.
And when I talk about this stuff with a lot of Bible scholars, they just think it's like they don't understand it. They're like, huh? That's not real. No, I never heard about that.
Yeah.
But then like people like Amon Hillman actually get this stuff. This is one of the few things that, no, I shouldn't say few things. This is one of the many things that me and Amon agreed on. And this is one of the reasons why I was actually like following his work, because I saw that he knew what was going on here. He saw what was going on here. A lot of old scholars do. Jarl Fossum obviously does. I cite his work all the time on this. It's not just Amon. But like the problem with Amon is, man, he just can't stick to the facts. He has to start making shit up. He has to make it all about some other drugs and all partying, and he's just so he's so full of shit that I can't stick around that movement. And the only people still following him are just morons, like brainless morons. Read between the lines, you'll find it. You'll find it. They're just, and between the lines is whatever they want it to be. He literally just recently, let me see if I can find the link. Someone sent me a link recently, so I could probably still find it. And I just want to show, and this is, I'll look and close on this.
Yeah.
Oh no, is this the one? Is this the one? That's not the one. Okay, here it is right here. Oh, by the way, he showed a picture of me. Look at this. He does this all the time. He shows pictures of me. And so people think, are you talking about Amon again? I'll talk about him all I want. He literally shows fake pictures of me on AI with blood all over my hands with a cross. Yeah, I'm totally Christian. I'm totally a Christian. I'm not the most anti-Christian public figure on the internet right now. Like what are you talking about? Everyone's a Christian. By the way, he's the one who literally thinks like Jesus did all this stuff. He literally is like, oh my God, don't you love it? I think he's a Christian. You're a Gnostic Christian, bro. Anyways, You believe it more than I do. You know that Almond defends the long ending of Mark?
Oh, he
Scholars
does?
don't. I don't.
Yeah.
He thinks we're all lying, that there really is. The long ending of Mark is really authentic. We're all lying and saying it's not authentic. But he's the one defending, he's the one aligned with the church on that one. It says,
but I have a question, right? Like, is he a philologist or just a Greek scholar? Okay.
He's a philologist. Yeah, he's a classical philologist. So,
okay, so then like his expertise isn't necessarily the Bible, is it?
No, it's not. He has no idea what he's talking about. He doesn't know any Hebrew. It's all made up. He just watch him lie. Watch how bad he lies right here. This is like textbook. If you still follow him after this, you're an idiot. Something's wrong with you. Watch this. Watch how bad this is.
She repeats the lie that Satan is from Hebrew. So what I have done...
Satan, the word Satan, Satana, is all over Ugaritic, Akkadian sources. You can find it in Aramaic, you find it in Arabic, you find it in all of the Semitic languages have a word for accuser or opposition. You can find it in Ugaritic sources.
I want to see what he has to say about his etymology in Greek. Yeah.
And then I'll come back to it.
For you people is within 1 second here. We are going to solve that mystery forever. Who started the lie? Who started this stupid lie? The religious idiot. Scholars who don't read these texts, who don't actually
read
we
do.
Texts. What is it? Where did it come from? You want to see? Go, bring it up. Bring me the TLG again, Chewy. Same search. Yes. Oh, God. No, the other one. Oh, God. People, I'm going to scroll. Dioscorides. Oh, God. Clement, look how much of Satan there is. See, these are all people, and where you really want them, these are the documents you really want them in right here. I'm going to show you. Oh, God. This is so yummy. Look at these testaments of the patriarchs. 2 BC to AD 3. It's a little bit late, right? 2 BC component-wise, right? I think, okay, this is the gap that we're dealing with, because this is the kind of literature you'll notice. 2 BC on these two. And on this one, you'll notice 1 BC, 1 AD. So these are the texts that Jesus is getting. And if you read these in Greek, the testaments of the
Do you see the problem already? These are all Christian sources that he's pointing to.
Right.
Satan, if we're talking about the Old Testament being the first, like he thinks the Old Testament is written in Greek, and Satan's a Greek word. So then why does the Septuagint not use Satan and uses diabolo? It's literally a translate. Only the Hebrew. Okay, oh my God, this is gonna blow my mind. Watch this. Let's go. If you're I'm sorry, I'm losing it, because if you actually believe what he just told you right now, you are like something like you are. I'm just gonna say you're retarded. I don't even care. I try not to use that word anymore. If you watch this clip and you were like, oh yeah, Satan is Greek, you are retarded. Sorry, I try not to use that word anymore. People don't like it.
Yeah,
I have to in this case, and I just have to. So you are seriously mentally you cannot think for yourself if you think that. Now Job uses the word Satan. Job and
right.
Satan. Here, let me finish his thing, and I'll go back to this in a second.
Patriarchs, you'll see where Jesus gets about 40% of his material. If you combine that with Enoch, you have Jesus's education. Right? Oh God!
I just want to. I want to see the word Satan before the Old Testament.
He doesn't
in Greek.
He never does. It doesn't exist. It doesn't exist.
I know it doesn't.
It doesn't exist. He tries to tell his audience that Saturn is where Satan comes from. It doesn't. Saturn. Guess who tells us about Saturn? By the way, Saturn is Latin.
Yeah.
Chronos is Greek. There's no Saturn in Greek.
And by the way,
the Latin people tell us what Saturn means. It means satiated. The word satiated.
But he's a philologist.
But the word satiated is where Saturn comes from. It has nothing to do with opposition or diabolo. The word diabolo is where we get the word devil from. So what is he going to say? Is he going to say the word devil is in Greek?
Right.
Like where does devil come from? It comes from a translation of the word Satan, because diabolo is a Greek word that does go back before the Old Testament because it's used for opposition or accusations. So when they translate the word Satan in Hebrew, they translate it to the devil, diabolo. It's so simple. This is 101 shit right here. Go ahead.
Right. I was just going to say, I don't think Greek has, if I recall, the sh-sa differentiation, where no. I think Hebrew does.
Yeah,
they have.
It's shatan.
Yeah, shatan. Right. So then, yeah, I don't get the philology.
Here,
so again,
watch. This is so easy to debunk. The first time Satan shows up in the Bible is in the book of Job. Well, I mean, some people debate. I think Job's the oldest out of the Satan references. I do. Whatever. It doesn't matter. Either way, it's Job's part of the Old Testament. It's part of the oldest layer of the Bible. It goes back to.
But he also thinks this is written in Greek originally, right?
Yes. But check this out. Okay, well, I don't know why I had this on Spanish. I don't know what I'm doing. Look at this. Okay. So he said, let's see. Let's go right here. Kai ho diabolos.
Diablos. Yeah.
Now, okay, what you just said Satan was a Greek word, bro. Why does it say diabolos here? And why does the Hebrew, hey, hashatan right there, see it? Shin, tav, and nu, the final nu. That's why it's so long. So hashatan, huh? What? Hashatan, ho diabolo, and then Satan in the English.
Right.
Bro, it's right there. There's Satan in Hebrew and diabolos in Greek. Are you stupid or are you a liar? Here it is right here. Diabolos toi kurio.
And diabolos on top too.
Kurio. Yeah, diabolos toi kurio. So you have Satan right here again. Hashatan right there. Devil. This is where we get the word devil from. Diabolos, because the B turns into a V. Diavolo, devil. Diabolo, diavolo, devil. Satan, Satan, as the evolution of it, and Satan. Just the translators of English decided to go with Satan. Now, later in the New Testament, Satan and devil are both transliterated, or the Diablo stays the same, but they transliterate the word Satan. It becomes a proper title.
Right.
It's used so much among these Jewish circles that they literally transliterate it into Greek. It's not a Greek word. And it's what's so funny about Amon Hillman is on the screen, he's showing New Testament references to Satan. And he thinks that because the word Satan is written in Greek, that means it's a Greek word. Greek word. Does this audience not know what a transliteration is? Look at the dates of this. AD 1, first century. If you're trying to convince me that Satan is a Greek word, you're going to show me first century AD? That's the oldest you can find? First century AD is the oldest you can find? Amon, you are pathetic. You are pathetic, and that's why you're afraid to debate. That's why you're afraid to debate someone who actually follows your career, because we know you're bullshit. I would sit in front of you and pick apart every single thing that you teach these idiots, one by one, and expose that you are a liar. You are a liar. Period. Do you want to even hear the rest of what he has to say?
No, I'm good.
I just want people to see, I just want people to literally see him in real time lie to his audience.
Search. Same search. Yes. Oh God. No. The other one. Oh God. People. I'm gonna scroll. Dioscorides. Oh God. Clement. Look how much of Satan there is. See, these are all people. And where do you really want them? These are the documents you really want them in right here. I'm going to show you. Oh, God. This is so yummy. Look at these testaments of the patriarchs. 2 BC to AD 3. It's a little bit late, right? 2 BC component-wise, right? I think, okay, this is the gap that we're dealing with, because this is the kind of literature you'll notice. 2 BC on these two. And on this one, you'll notice 1 BC, 1 AD. So these are the texts that Jesus is getting. And if you read these in Greek, the testaments of the patriarchs, you'll see where Jesus gets about 40% of his material. If you combine that with Enoch, you have Jesus's education Right? Oh, God. Okay, so people, I'm sorry. What were we doing? We were looking for the first lie. The first lie, people, where is it? The early Christians are loving it. Here's some doctoring on it, right? Clement of Alexandria, they love the satanic stuff because they know exactly what it's all about. They understand, right? This is an Epstein dynasty. Polycarp is there to tell you, right? Oh, fantastic. Look at all the Epistle of Barnabas. The Epistle of Barnabas. You haven't heard of that one, have you? No, you haven't. Look at the date on it, people. The epistle, the letters.
Did you see what he just did there?
Excuse me? Highlight it, yes, there. Whoop. People, look at this.
Look at this.
AD 1 and 2.
Chewy, are you high? I don't think you're that stupid. Do you honestly think a first century AD text is going to tell us that this word is in Greek? Shouldn't we be looking for words that predate the Old Testament? Let's go with your dating of the Old Testament. 270. I agree with you guys. I think it's all Hellenistic too. Can you show me a single Greek source that ever uses the word satanan, like you're just pointing to right now, from a Christian source, by the way? The sources on the screen are Christian source. It's the Epistle of Barnabas. The Epistle of Barnabas. What do you think they're going to use? They're going to use Christian stuff. They're going to use Jewish shit. They're going to transliterate words and nouns, like Satan, for example. You have to be an absolute moron to follow this person still. He's lying right to your face, and he knows this. By the way, I don't think he believes what he's saying right now. He does not believe
I don't know anything about this dude, so I know some things I've said in a couple podcasts that he seems out of his gourd.
No, yeah, he doesn't believe anything he's saying right here at all. By the way, I really want to look up. There's this Ugaritic. You can search words in the Ugaritic, and I have to find the data bank for it. I'm gonna show this in my upcoming video, debunking Amen Hillman. It's getting close to being ready. However, I'll just real quick. I'll just show you what I mean. I have a couple screenshots ready to go, but I'm actually going to show people the actual source. I'm going to show them a picture of the actual Akkadian text so I can literally drag them by their hands, by their stupid Ammonite hands, and show them and take their stupid faces and shove it into the text and go, look at this text right here. Look at it. This is from 1200 BC. You stupid idiot. Here it is, from 1200 BC. Satanu, to mean to accuse, to dispute. Semantic note, in Akkadian can mean a legal adversary, is more commonly expressed by the word Beldini, the lord of lawsuit. However, the root satan persists as a technical term for act of opposition. Oh my God. You fucking liar, Amen. You fucking piece of shit liar. You've been doing this for longer than I've been alive, and you don't even know this yet. That means you're a fucking liar. Source, Association of Assyriophile of France, Akkadian Dictionary, Chicago Assyrian Dictionary. This is just fucking everywhere. There's no Satan in Greek before the Old Testament. That's why they translate it to devil, you fucking liar. Diabolo is where the word devil comes from. Stop lying to people and making people dumber for your own personal narcissistic gain. Anyways. I'm going to close it off on that. So, any last thoughts?
No, man, that's great. I always love jumping on with you and going into wherever we go. But this is always interesting stuff, man. I love the cross-cultural, cross-religious conversation.
Well, like I always say, you have just attained true gnosis.
You have just attained true gnosis. The demiurge has no power over you.